All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new here. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Some of you a second time today. I really appreciate it and appreciate you waiting patiently for the intro to finish up. I hope you're all doing well on this Friday, April 24th, 2026. We have quite a few topics to go over and discuss today. One of those topics, though, is Saros. Saros, the reviews are out early, almost a full week early. And I would say, unsurprisingly, it's reviewing very well. Housemark, they did it again, man, based off of what I can tell. It seems like they cooked up a potential Game of the Year contender. I think it is safe to say it is a Game of the Year contender. So we're going to be discussing this. We're going to be going over the reviews of Saros, not like every review, of course, but just kind of get a general idea. I think Digital Foundry put out an analysis video of how this game is looking and performing on the PS5 and PS5 Pro. Lady Gamer, what is going on? Verco, Perfect Image, Davis, Petrov, Sal, Mr. Benidorm UK. Hope you guys are doing good today. Saros is not the only thing we're going to be discussing today, though. We are also going to be talking a little bit more about Xbox because, well, one of the things that was announced yesterday by the Xbox, new Xbox CEO is they are reevaluating exclusivity. They also announced a bunch of other things, but I think this is probably the most pertinent to PlayStation. However, I would say most of what they're laying out is pertinent to PlayStation just from the scope of competition, right? So we're going to talk about that, but we also have an interesting rumor about the upcoming PlayStation handheld. Apparently, first-party development teams were briefed today about this upcoming handheld, and there might be an insider gaming report coming in the not-too-distant future about this handheld. So it's getting real, guys. I mean, it is real, but it's heating up, right? So I'm going to give it a few minutes here. I'm going to hang out with the chat. I'm going to let more people kind of file in, and then we will dive into talking about Saros. That's what we're going to kick off with today. All right. And guys, do me a favor as you're filing in, make sure you take a moment, hit that like button. If you enjoy these streams, if you like Press X Podcast and you want to help with the YouTube algorithm, easiest thing you can do, hit that like button. We're currently sitting at 30. Let's see if we can get that up to 50. And if you want to support the channel directly, there are a couple of ways you can do that. Consider becoming a channel member. We just did a members lounge earlier, and we do Morning with the Missus sometimes, so you get exclusive content, exclusive perks. Consider gifting memberships. Ray did drop 5 member gifts earlier, so that's contributed to the goal. And, you know, super chats, direct donations, all that stuff helps, contributes to the channel, and allows me to do what I do here. So big shout out to everybody who makes this possible. Couldn't do it without you. All right, Ray, good to see you again, man. Saros, not Soros. I'm saying Saros, right? Sar. Saros? I don't like that. That to me, that's not how that reads. I can't say Saros. Saros. You know what though? When you say sorry, S-O, ooh, maybe I am saying it wrong. Saros. There we go. Prince. Knock that off. Saros? Is Xbox back? We'll talk about that. According to Asha Sharma, it's coming back. It's coming back. It's getting real. Raven, what's going on, man? Yeah, I apologize about yesterday. I had to abruptly end my stream. I had a bad headache that was coming on, and it's a good thing I did because it definitely did peak, but I rehydrated. I rested up a little bit. Felt a lot better in the evening and in the nighttime, so I'm feeling better today. So apologies for that. I know I've been a little bit all over the place, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there. I'm trying to stay as consistent as I possibly can. We did put out a news video earlier as well, so when we're finished up here today, if you want to go check that out, you can. Prince, thank you for that, man. Yeah. Henry 3K, what's going on, bro? All right. Well, let's start. Let's start with Saros, however you want to pronounce it. Feel free to pronounce it however you like. It's an acronym. What does it stand for? Oh boy. You know what, Michael? I'll let you come up with it. I'm not clever enough. Not on the spot. So, in case you missed it, the reviews are out for Saros. And if we head over to Metacritic. Oh, okay. If we head over to Metacritic, if it wouldn't break, we have how many total reviews here? 89 total reviews. We have 89 total reviews, and it scored an 88. Now, I made a prediction yesterday that it was going to score an 87, so I was 1 point off, but I'm happy to be off by a point if it's going to be higher. Sitting at an 88. And when you look it over, it's got 85 positive reviews, 85 reviews in the green, only four reviews in the yellow. And surprise, surprise, who is it? Well, let's go take a look. IGN is one of the reviewers that gave it a 7 out of 10. The other reviewers that gave it a 7 out of 10, Comic Book, Saudi Gamer, and Restart.run. Those are the only 4 outlets that gave Saros a 7 out of 10. Now, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. As we cover the reviews for Saros, make the decision yourself, right? I think most of you already know whether or not you plan on playing this game, but I think we're also kind of curious to see just how good Saros actually is. However, we will check out some of the lower review scores as well and see what their critiques are here. Because, I mean, if they're giving it a 7 out of 10, there has to be something that isn't quite hitting the mark for them. Can't help but wonder what it is. Yeah, IGN, man. What is it with IGN? I cannot take IGN very seriously, or maybe seriously at all. But when it comes to deciding if you want to play a video game, you need to make that decision for yourself. At the very least, hopefully some of what we go over today will be a little bit informative for you. But I've already made the decision a long time ago that I was playing Saros. And so I'm actually just happy to see it reviewing so well. Scoring an 88 on Metacritic is fantastic. I think that, Saros will... I do think it is a Game of the Year contender. Will it actually be up for Game of the Year at the end of this year, considering the fierce competition? I'm not sure about that one. Any other year, though. All right. IGN is an acronym. What does it stand for? I game never gonna stop. There we go. That's the acronym. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, mine was too positive. Mine was too positive. You're saying invalid gaming news. There you go. Invalid gaming news. Brutal. Incompetent gaming news. Okay. See you, Hellbound. That's funny. Ignorant. I mean, I feel like it's too easy to clown on IGN. I really believe that. It's too easy to clown on them. I don't want to, but it does kind of stand. Like, I'm sorry, man. When a game's reviewing this well, almost every review is positive, and then you just have these 4 outlets that are like, You know what, though? I will say, hold on a positive note. Hold on. On a positive note, this will probably change in the next few hours, though. No random 3 out of 10. No random 4 out of 10. This is progress. This is good. Pretty much every game we go over, there's always some random psychopath that's like, this game is a 2.5 out of 10. Trash. So none of that. Yeah, for now. You know, one of these outlets is like just standing in the corner like, oh, you wait. Iguanas go nuclear? Very, very interesting, Ghetto Guy. It's not where my mind went. We have NozKid A with a $5 super chat. Says, I don't think many people consider IGN in their purchasing factor anymore. You're absolutely correct. And it's sad because IGN used to actually be somewhat respected. They used to actually have some allure. You know, people really actually did care. What went wrong? Did Survivor not review it? I don't know. Yeah, good point. They're blacklisted by Sony. Probably for good reason, dude. Survivor, they would always give Sony's games like ridiculously low review scores, and it just seemed malicious. It didn't seem genuine. But we're going to start with the low scores because there's only 4. It's also worth noting that we have Kotaku, The Verge, Polygon. These 3 outlets have not given, well, I don't know if some of them I think don't give scores. But we haven't. Okay, yeah, so The Verge doesn't give a score. Kotaku does. Okay. So they did review it, but they're not giving scores. Which, I can appreciate that. I can respect it. IGN mouse for PI for higher review is ridiculous. Oh, yeah, I saw people going, yeah, what was up with that before we get into this? I saw there was some drama with IGN and specifically the mouse PI for higher review. What what did they do? What did they say? What did they give it, like a 6 out of 10? This seems a little bit lower than expected. They picked the reviewer that would least like the game to review the games. Plot twist, nobody at IGN likes video games. That would make some sense, right? Really? No, you have to be kidding. Too many mouse jokes? 6 out of 10? Okay, hold on. Pivot for 1 second. IGN mouse PI for high review. Let's see. I'm on their website. 6 out of 10. It's okay. Mouse PI for higher is an amusing enough FPS if you just want to blast some cartoon mice and not think about it too hard. But its haphazard marriage of noir storytelling and boomer shooter action are at odds in uncomfortable ways that weaken both aspects. Wow, IGN is responding to comments, I think. Oh, wait, no, they're not. Never mind. For a second, I thought IGN was actually responding to the comments. Well, that didn't really give me narrative dissonance. What? Did they really dock points because there's too many jokes about cheese? That has to be a joke, right? The guy expected LA Noir. That's awesome. Dude, that's so funny. If that's basically the gist of it, I went in thinking I was getting LA Noir. I got too many cheese jokes. That's crazy. That is comical. I haven't went over it. Watch Moist Critical's video on it. Maybe I'll have to check that out later on or on my own time. That is funny. We have a little update here. Sackboy says, Asha Sharma, quote, no additional info to share about exclusivity, end quote. Or no, continued quote. We'll take a data-driven approach and a strategic-driven approach, and then we'll look at our principles and we'll make some calls. So, about that exclusivity, Miss Sharma, what's going on? We don't know. Stop asking. We'll go over that later. We'll go over that later. Where did that come from, though? It sounds like it was a little bit of an update. Yes, thank you, Ray. I always forget. IGN's review of Cheese, 3 out of 10. Was IGN one of the ones that docked points for Death Stranding 2 for feet picks? Oh, man. Don't stop giving me the flashbacks, Ghetto God. I probably, I don't know. Somebody did that. Okay, strategic exclusivity is returning. Here we go. Saudi Gamer gives Saros a 7 out of 10, and they say, While it loses some of the allure of Returnal, this game aims to attract players by smoothing out the learning curve. So, I guess if I'm understanding Saudi Gamer correctly, they don't like the changes that were made about, you know, regarding, the difficulty. I don't know. I mean, that's how I read that. They liked it when it was a more difficult learning curve. Maybe they found it too easy. It comes from Steven Totillo. Okay. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Comic Book. Comic Book also gives Saros a 7 out of 10. They say Saros' story remains an overall disappointment and is another reason why the game is an unsatisfactory follow-up to Returnal. Not only does Saros fail to build on what the 2021 title started, it takes massive leaps backwards by having an unstable and frustrating difficulty curve, a less cohesive story, and is a shallower roguelike and has shallower roguelike systems. Devoid of the context given by release dates, it would seem as though Saros came well before Returnal, with how much less confident and taut it is in comparison. While Fiery Suns define Saros and play an ever-present role in it, it is Returnal that is the shining star here. One that clearly eclipses its spiritual successor. I'll never understand this. What I just read right there, that doesn't sound like a 7 out of 10. That sounds like less than a 7 out of 10. Man, I'm so curious though, because this is one of the only 7 out of 10 reviews basically saying it takes a step back from Returnal in every way. I find that difficult to believe. I'll be honest. I find that very difficult to believe. And we have Corey, the legend Landiga. He comes in. Stop that. Stop chat GPTing how to pronounce Saros. Corey, the legend Landiga comes in.
I'm no hero.
And he drops 5 more member gifts for you guys. He brings us up to 10 on the day. Don't worry, we only still need to get to 25 to feed the beast. I don't know why that is at 50, actually. I'll just keep it there. We'll see if we can hit 50 today, but 25 will feed the beast. I know that's why Corey does it. Thank you, Corey. Let me add that to the goal. If you guys want to contribute to that, feel free to do so. We did a members lounge, basically like a bonus member stream. So if you do get gifted a membership and you're looking for more content after today's Press X podcast episode, you can go check that out, or the news video I put out earlier. All right. So comicbook.com saying Saros is a step back in every way. IGN gives it a 7 out of 10. I'm going to read a little bit more from IGN's. Sometimes, against our better judgment, we do the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different outcome. Very true. Developer Housemarque's new third-person bullet hell shooter Saros explores the idea in many ways: the roguelite level structure, the repeated combat encounters, and the intentional conflicts of its main character, Arjun. It has a familiar gameplay foundation to its predecessor, Returnal 2, with fluid gunplay and deft movement. But in trying to be more thematically ambitious, Saros opens itself up to pitfalls Returnal didn't have to manage, leaving some of its more interesting threads unsatisfyingly hanging. Still, it's tough as nails combat. It's still worth getting good for, even when its repetition can wear you down. Arjun Devraji is an expeditioner. Okay, we know that. He says it's for the boss. Continuing with IGN's review, you quickly realize that something is extremely off with each solar eclipse turning a planet into a hellscape and inducing a deep psychosis that chips away at everyone's well-being as tensions grow increasingly hostile. There are parallels to works like Heart of Darkness or Apocalypse Now here, but Saros is more of an adaptation of the 19th century anthology The King in Yellow by Robert Chambers. It pulls names and themes directly from the book itself while brushing up against a little cosmic horror. You see Arjun battling his own sanity and past decisions as you get further, and you have to ponder. What is Solitaire's real purpose? Does that matter? Why does Arjun keep respawning as few even bat an eye? Is any of this real? I love that stuff. Those are all interesting questions as you unpack what Saros is really about. You do so primarily by blasting through multiple run based levels that make up Carcosa. The more you familiarize yourself with the unrelenting attack patterns of enemies and learn how to be effectively aggressive with weapons you vibe with, the closer you get to a flow state that speedy shooters like this uniquely tap into. It's strongly rooted in Returnal's design philosophies with a few edges sanded off. And while I don't think Saros is necessarily an evolution, I came away with a sated appetite for Housemarque's house style. Carcocia's various biomes are broken up into distinct levels, which themselves must be completed in a single run to make progress. It's a different way of packaging a similar idea. Levels shift ever so slightly with each run, pulling from a defined set of rooms to generate the path forward. Some rooms emphasize platforming challenges, most throw hordes of biomechanical amalgamations at you, and some are a tough mix of both. Runs do begin to blend together, as the cadence doesn't really change that much since the parameters are fairly tight. But in a game like this, death is part of the process, and each failed run is a training ground for what you ultimately need to do: get through the level as healthy as possible and defeat the boss in one fell swoop. This largely works because, like it has done historically, Housemarque makes damn good shooters, from 2D and top down shmups. I hate that term, such as Resogun and Nex Machina, to the third person bullet hell of Returnal. Speed and agility are priorities, and that's balanced with a generous tracking system for aiming, which makes Saros play a little closer to an arcade shooter. I often relied on the Onslaught rifle that disables auto aim altogether for more powerful shots, or the Smart rifle that hones in on targets to let me focus on mobility. Most guns come with a satisfying impact, including pistols that remain relevant throughout the late game, ripsaws that tear through enemies with damage over time, all of which come with different perks and in several variations that drop randomly during runs. Saros makes brilliant use of the DualSense controller's haptic feedback here, mapping its alternate fire mode to a half trigger pull that you physically feel, and the windup of your power ability to a full trigger pull, both of which are crucial to execute at a moment's notice. Okay, so far, so good. No negatives. I mean, again, I'm reading a 7 out of 10 IGN review. Everything the reviewer said so far is totally positive and sounds great. So, curious to see what comes next here. As there's a massive ad that I seemingly can't. Okay. All right, there we go. Firepower is only half the battle because the most challenging part of Saros is reacting to the colorful beams that hound you on the battlefield. Enemies fire off a rapid mix of blue shots that can be absorbed to fuel your shield and power ability, red shots that can be parried but not blocked, and yellow shots that can build corruption to limit your max health but empower certain weapons. Knowing when to evade and when to take those hits head on is something you'll constantly have to process and learn to love. Where fighting through hordes of aliens in combat arenas is about managing the chaos of everything they throw at you, boss fights are more about attention to detail. Where swift visual and audio cues tip you off to what's coming, asking you to be quick enough to position yourself and react while still finding windows of opportunity to get your own shots in. This dynamic tapped into a little bit of my rhythm game skills, and it's the test of your reflexes that I enjoyed the most. Even in moments of frustration, I knew coming out the other end of it would be a moment of triumph. Saros eases the friction of Returnal a bit by putting a bigger focus on permanent resources and upgrades, even giving you a second chance revive early on. Back at the home base hub area, you'll work through a skill tree that improves your health, shield and power potency, and rate of resource gathering. Certain branches can boost weapon leveling to help pick up better versions in runs or make your clutch ultimate ability stronger, but progress isn't necessarily about depending on your skill set or fundamentally changing your playstyle. Rather, it's about making its challenges a little more manageable for future runs and, of course, playing smarter. Nodes in the skill tree are incremental upgrades that are important to obtain because things do get very difficult. This is where Saros can get pretty monotonous at times. Instead of challenging you to think creatively about combat, more weight is put on your ability to survive in a war of attrition. I respect that approach, but when you have to spend 20 to 30 minutes going through the motions in a level just to get another shot at the boss, the repetition begins to settle in. I suppose it comes with the territory for a roguelike shooter of this style where build crafting isn't really a thing outside of the artifacts that temporarily boost your stats and come with the debuffs to consider, and hopefully plucking out your preferred weapons/powers with a good set of perks. It's an approach that has its merits, demanding that you stay locked in during a run, but that doesn't stop it from feeling tedious in spots. As a PS5 exclusive, Saros seems like it's trying to align itself more closely with Sony's other prestige single player games by having a more deliberate, high concept story. Themes of trying to break harmful cycles, coming to terms with grave mistakes, or even struggles with sexual identity. Oh, geez. Okay. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. What? Oh, whoa, hold on. We must ask. We gotta look at everybody's looking at Arjun. Everybody's looking at Arjun and they're asking one question. Why are you gay? Dude, that would be so funny. We made this joke. No, we did this. We did this. Guys, hold on before I finish this IGN review. Does anybody remember when we saw that trailer where it showed like two legs rubbing up against each other, I guess in a bed, and that's what they showed? And we were like, it's going to be a dude. Oh boy. Just when you thought Sony PlayStation wasn't gay enough. You know what, though? If the game's still awesome, whatever, bro. But I love how they just throw that in. Herman strikes again, bro. I love how they just throw that in there, though. I was not expecting that. That really threw me for a loop. I did not think that was... Oh, man. I haven't seen anything of Saros that indicates that could be... Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, people. Okay, where did I leave off? Okay, so all these themes work their way into what initially seemed like something primarily inspired by Hollywood sci-fi. I commend the direction because these are intriguing threads to pull on, but the ways the storytelling comes off short really stick out when there's a bigger emphasis on it this time around. Saros gets halfway there, but unfortunately leaves many of its stronger plot lines underdeveloped. Arjun is a compelling lead because while he's dead set on chasing someone important to him on Carcosia, something deeper continually brews inside of him. His stubbornness manifests in various ways as he simultaneously tries to make sense of the loop he's stuck in and the vision that haunts him as he wakes up for another run. There are moments when Saros built towards revelations that felt like breakthroughs in the story, which had me engaged, but sometimes those moments would be teed up without a follow-through required for them to fully feel like payoff. Flawed, even irredeemable characters can be really interesting, and feeling conflicted about these kinds of stories is a fascinating mental exercise to work through, but you need a deft hand to truly pull that off. Most supporting characters have arcs that boil down to their descent into madness told in voice notes, and aside from a select few crewmates back at the base and a bossy solitary computer that has a bit of an identity crisis, there isn't much added depth. Brief conversations in the hub area with the crew feel oddly stilted, but at least serve to feed onto the unnerving setting. However, Saros does have some of the strongest use of readable data logs I've seen in a while. Beyond just being flavor text, there's some great writing that provides insights into the form of solitary reports, employee data, or diary-like entries, which create a kind of thematic texture that's genuinely effective, and I wish some of this found its way into the main story. It reminds me a little bit of MGS5. It doesn't help that the storytelling is so abstracted that it obscures your understanding of what is actually happening. I'm not asking for its message to be spoon-fed to me or its twisting sequence of events to be laid out in broad daylight, but I do expect the story to create through lines that lead to something we can define with only the pieces we are given. Some of my favorite stories in games leave things up to interpretation because there's real power to connecting the threads for yourself, but they still had to lay the groundwork to let us piece it together and form our own perspectives. Saros has flashes of this that'll provoke interesting spoiler discussions, but I get the sense that it relied a little too heavily on its literary inspiration to fill in the gaps. Returnal was impactful because it solely focused on Celine and her time loop fighting through Atropos. It used that format to reflect her personal struggles that were subtle in the early hours, then gave you the means to paint a clear picture the deeper you got. Roguelite is a metaphor, as a metaphor, worked so well there, and its parallels hit hard when you reach the point where it all started falling into place. Saros bites off more than it can chew, which I can admire, but the actual execution struggles to send the message I think it's sending. It thinks it's sending. So, I have to admit, I expected this review to be much worse. Like, I mean, my takeaway here is the reason why IGN gave Saros a 7 out of 10 is they weren't satisfied with the story, which makes me all the more interested in what the good reviews have to say about the story, because I have to admit that one of the things I am most interested in Saros is the story. I mean, I know we were just kind of joking around about how they said apparently sexual identity is a portion of this story. Who knows what that's going to mean, but everything that they've shown so far in the trailers about the story has me fascinated and has me interested. And I did love what they did with Returnal. I love the ambiguity. I love the fact that it's left up to interpretation to a certain extent. It's interesting that this person clearly did play Returnal, and it seems like they enjoyed the story, the way Housemarque told the story in Returnal more so than this. I mean, of course, we assume the gameplay is going to be top notch. Not a single complaint was made, really, except for at times maybe it feeling tedious. That was the only real complaint we got from IGN giving it a 7 out of 10, which, I mean, I guess that's fair. We only have one more 7 out of 10. I'm not going to read the whole review, but Restart.Run says Saros is a game I'll be chewing on for the rest of the year. It's a game that has a lot of flaws, but makes up for them in showcasing the complicated and messy dynamics that humans find themselves in. An easy recommendation for those looking for bullet hell with a deep mythos around it. A game that isn't perfect and is messy, much like all of us. So, all right, now I'm going to go to the opposite end. We're going to start reading some of the more positive reviews and see what they're saying and how it potentially differs from the lower end reviews. Should I check out SkillUp's review? Tedious in a roguelike, exactly. Wait, what? Guys, do me a favor. Make sure you're hitting that like button if you're enjoying the stream. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Take a moment, hit that like button. Let's push for 100 likes. We have a review here from GameSpew. They give it a 10 out of 10, saying Housemarque is back with yet another fantastic, fast-paced third-person shooter. Saros builds on Returnal, delivering deeper and more enjoyable gameplay, as well as a new permanent progression system and modifiers which allow you to tweak the difficulty to your preferences. All in all, it's Housemarque's best game yet. Ruben J with a $5 super chat says that reviewer Michael Hingham is a good writer. Enjoyed his Pragmata review. Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar with him, but I'm not going to lie. My expectation when going into IGN, I was expecting there to be some nonsensical reason. Like, I can get on with that. Like, if somebody says, I didn't enjoy the story that much, there's certain aspects of it that just didn't click with me. And for a game that puts a lot of emphasis on a story, if you take a point or two off for that, I can respect it, I may find myself completely disagreeing after I play with it, but I was just expecting to be something really stupid. Because a lot of times when I see these lower scores from certain outlets, it's like there's always just some random nonsense in there. It's like, what? But yeah, I'm not familiar with this person in particular, but everything they said seemingly made sense. It's hard for me to really know how I feel about what they said because I don't know the story. Who knows? Maybe when I am finished playing Saros, I might feel the same way. It's doubtful, but let me see here. PlayStation Universe gives it a 10 out of 10. They say a blistering rapid-fire epic without peer, Saros confidently delivers a dual masterclass in third-person shooter design and roguelike sensibilities, all wrapped in a delectable veneer that elevates it to one of the best-looking games on PS5. To quote the kids, Housemarque cooked here. This is their masterpiece, and it is the next must-have, utterly essential PlayStation exclusive, Carcosa Beckons. So, I mean, that's from a PlayStation-leaning website, so take that for what it is. You know, PlayStation-leaning website giving it a 10 out of 10. But they liked it, so we have Player 2 giving it a 10 out of 10, saying Housemarque enhances their already lofty reputation with a title that even surpasses their efforts with Returnal. The prospect of putting down the controller is almost as terrifying as the world of Carcosa. VGC gave it a 10 out of 10. I don't know why I said that like that. They say Saros is a bold, confident realization of 30 years of Housemarque. I'm actually going to read their full review. So we had IGN giving it a 7 out of 10. We read the entire review. Now let's read the entire review of VGC, giving it a full-blown 10 out of 10 here. And Hellbound 1981 comes in, drops another 5 member gifts on you guys, opening the 5-pack. Hellbound, thank you so much for that, my friend. That brings us up to 15 members on the day. We are now 10 away from hitting 25. We hit 25. When I'm done reading this review, we'll feed the beasts if we hit that 25 before I'm finished reading the review, okay? So thank you, guys. If you want to continue to contribute to that goal, feel free to do so. Let's me do what I do here. All right. Let me do something real quick here before I read this review. These freaking ads. Okay. IGN, or not IGN. IGN gives it a 7 out of 10. VGC gives it a 10 out of 10. VGC says there is perhaps nothing better in this medium than when a game feels right, when the moves in the player's arsenal are tied to hyper-responsive controls, matched by clear, dazzling visuals and an epic soundscape. This is where Housemarque has always excelled. In its latest game, Saros, the Finnish studio pairs that gameplay mastery with a deeply mysterious, unsettling story and a wonderful central performance from Raul Kali for one of the most memorable first-party games on the PlayStation 5. Saros is a third-person roguelike shooter from the same team that brought you the brutal but beautiful Returnal. Saros takes much of the feedback from that game and uses it to make Saros a no-frills representation of what the studio has been trying to achieve. As Arjun Devraj, the player explores various biomes filled with hostile enemies, each of which is a combat puzzle of reaction times, parry windows, and rapid movement. One of Saros' most effective balancing acts is that everything you encounter can kill you easily, and you can kill it easily. It's all about concentration. If you're careless, you'll quickly be overrun and watch your health bar deplete. But if you're on the front foot and high press the enemies, you will feel like the Doomslayer. Encounters in Saros are similar to Returnal in that sense that they're largely confined to smaller battle arenas. But unlike Returnal, which involved a large amount of defensive, evasive play, Saros is more aggressive. In what the game's director Gregory Loudon describes as the bullet ballet, Saros allows the player to absorb enemy bullets to convert them into a powerful weapon. Blue bullets can be absorbed, yellow ones can be dodged, though, and dodged through, and red ones can be parried. If you're really focused and you're adept enough to dodging and countering, you never, ever need to take a step back. There's an incredible sense of momentum, and enemies die quickly enough that it feels like you're knocking down a new combat puzzle every few seconds, rather than piling into bullet sponges. Though eventually, you will die. Housemarque, like Team Asobi and Insomniac before it, is one of the very few developers this generation to actually make use of the DualSense controller. Pulling the left trigger halfway will initiate alt-fire on guns, with a full pull activating Arjun's power weapon. I can't get too specific with it due to spoilers, but the way haptics are used to convey certain conversations is incredibly innovative and indicative of a team that absolutely loves experimenting with technology. So just wanted to take a note here that love to hear that. In the last blog post we read about Saros, that's what Housemarque teased, that they did something a little special with the DualSense haptic feedback. So it's good to see VGC talking about it. When you end up dying, you'll return to the passage, the home base of Echelon 4. Arjun and the crew of Echelon 4 are on the hunt for previous expeditions to Carcosa, none of which have been seen for some time now. How much time exactly is impossible to tell. The crew is helpless, unaware whether they've been on Carcosa for weeks or years. Saros set up a gripping mystery story. Most players will probably realize that a missing crew on this extremely hostile planet isn't going to fare well, but the web that unfolds as the player picks up more text logs, audio messages, and um, and speaks to the rest of the crew is Housemark at its best. The story will inspire fans to argue over lore, character fates, and more for years. Even now, around a week after beating the game, I'm replaying elements of its closing act in my head and preparing to head back to the game on a fresh save file to see what threads I missed the first time around. All of this is hung on Raul Kali's exceptional performance. It's a performance that feels destined to earn a swath of award nominations. While he enjoys more co-stars than Returnal's protagonist Celine, um, which actually the actress Jane Perry, who played Celine, is in this game. Colley spends the vast majority of this game playing off of himself. I'd have enjoyed more time spent with the crew, especially given the novelty of a much larger cast this time, but what I did get was very engaging. Most of it is totally missable if players just want to get back out there, but for Housemark lore nerds like myself, there's plenty to dig into. So very interesting. VGC is basically saying the opposite of what IGN said, where they're saying that the story is actually Housemarque's best and they love it and they're still thinking about it, and people are going to be arguing about what means what. So interesting. It says here Colley's performance is rich, deeply guarded, and often unsettling. It's a rare thing to spend so much time with a character and still feel like there's plenty that the game isn't telling you. There's a sense of unease and mystery across the game's writing and performances that never lets the player feel totally at home in this alien world. The journey the character goes on during Saros and the evolution of his performance as some of the game's truths are revealed will stick with me for a long time. Wow. Sounded like this. I don't know. This is speaking my language right here. When it's time to head back into Carcosia, you can either start from the beginning of the run and defeat all the bosses on your way to the next objective, or warp to the biome that sent you back to the passage. The advantage of going through the whole run again is that by the time you get to your obstacle, you can find yourself at a much higher level than if you simply started back at the biome you were last at. However, if you feel like you've dialed in a boss fight and you simply want quicker runs at it, the game gives you that option too. You can complete a biome in around 30 minutes, or as short as 10 if you really know what you're doing. And if you're spending too much time exploring non-essential side rooms, at some point in each biome, players will trigger the Eclipse, which increases the intensity of enemies and gives them the ability to corrupt Arjun. Performance-wise, the game was locked at 60 frames per second for 99% of my playthrough, save for one very specific room that would cause some slowdown each time I visited it. Curiously, before a patch was deployed mid-review period, this wasn't the case, so this incredibly minor issue may be addressed before it's even released publicly. Across the board, Saros feels like Housemarque took all the feedback from Returnal and managed to implement it in a way that doesn't compromise its vision. This is also felt in the game's Carcosian modifiers, which are a series of buffs and nerfs that you can apply to Arjun before a run in order to customize the game more to your liking. You can do more damage, but that also has to be balanced with a negative effect, which includes less experience gained or disabling the ability for certain upgrade materials to appear in the world. Saros is still an extremely tough game, and plenty of bosses gave me a From Software level of satisfaction to overcome, but it's certainly a less intense challenge than Returnal. As you progress through the world and the standard enemies get tougher, the game's soundtrack kicks into higher gear. The game's score, which combines drone metal with occasional electronica notes, gets more oppressive as your opponents get tougher. There's a smothering effect of how each soundtrack's disparate stems gets louder and louder as you progress. I'm not typically one to wear headphones while playing games, but for Saros, the use of the 3D audio makes it absolutely worth it. Carcosia is a visual feast, ranging from sun-bleached ancient ruins to opulent black marble architectural wonders. Saros has to balance the world that looks incredible without infringing on the player's ability to see what's going on, and I think they absolutely nail it. There's an obvious intentionality to save some of the big visual wow moments for the quiet beats between the action. You can see the late game biomes in the distance when exploring early game biomes. This isn't a case of if you can see it, you can go there. This is more of what on earth is possibly waiting for me there. What was waiting for me was some great boss fights. The concept of a boss fight has largely fallen out of fashion in mainstream gaming, except for the perennially popular Souls series. I suppose when one series makes it such a calling card, it's naturally for others in the space to turn away. Saros absolutely achieves that feeling of dread when you're approaching a boss room, the sense of trepidation while you wait for the boss to make its move. They are, in essence, skill checks for what you've learned in that biome or what new weapon has been introduced to you. In Saros, enemies in a biome leading up to a boss will often have moves that mirror the boss's attacks, with every small encounter essentially becoming a tutorial for the main fight. There are 1 to 2 bosses that are more focused on screen filling spectacle than intense fighting, but they're earned in the context for the rest of the game. Before playing Saros, I was concerned that the wrong lessons could have been learned from those who didn't click with Returnal, but I'm glad those worries were unfounded. While parts of Saros may feel like a day off for Returnal's most hardcore devotees, what Housemarque has created is an incredibly tight, polished experience that triples down on what the studio is best at in a market where Sony has been regularly accused of making the same third-person action adventure with different skins. Saros stands out. It's tough, rewarding, and full of intrigue. Raoul Kali's Arjun Devraj is a captivating lead man who sustained my interest throughout the entire 20-hour campaign. Even now, some days after seeing everything in the game that it had to offer, there are layers to both Kali's performance and in the game's overall mystery that I'm dying to pick apart with fans. Almost 10 years after the CEO, I don't know how to say their name, the CEO of Housemarque declared Arcade is dead, Housemarque is still very much alive. So there you go, man. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of, you know, the difference here between, the 7 out of 10 review from IGN versus the 10 out of 10 review from VGC. I think that if 7 is the lowest you go because you didn't enjoy the story that much, there's also a chance that you're going to love the story, you're going to love the ambiguity, and you're going to love the performance. But something that seems pretty clear across the board is that this game, Saros, the gameplay is top tier. And again, that's not even a little bit surprising to me. Returnal, for as much as I did like Returnal's story or what I could piece together of it, I can't deny that the gameplay was really the thing that just, I think, amplified that title. It made it stand out, and the challenge of it. I am curious to see how much more difficult Saros is than Returnal, because when I played Returnal, I remember by the time I got to the 3rd biome, I almost got filtered out. I was getting frustrated. I sucked. I couldn't do anything. But by the time I would say I put like, I don't know, maybe like 15 or so hours into it, maybe 12 to 15 hours in that 3rd biome, something just clicked. And I'm curious to see how much different it is this time with Saros, but really, really glad to see that it's reviewing well. And I'm glad I read that VGC review, because I'm not going to lie, the review from IGN left me feeling like, uh-oh, is this like a bad story or bad performances or something? But based off of what VGC is saying, they're like, no, dude, this is one of the most memorable games, and they're still thinking about it. I'm like, considering how I felt in the trailers I've seen so far for Saros, I think it's safe to say I'm going to lean more towards the VGC side, where I'm going to really like it. And Angry Whale Watcher comes in and drops a single member gift for you guys, contributing to the goal today, and also reminding you can always drop a single gift. Single gift always helps. Angry Whale Watcher, thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
You will be picking up Saros, but need to finish Pragmata first. Yeah. I'm going to prioritize Saros, and then eventually I'll get to Pragmata. I do want to play Pragmata. It looks really good. I've heard such good things. Man, single-player games, bro. Are they dead? I think not. Capcom and Sony out here, back-to-back. Love to see it. I'm just so happy that Saros is reviewing well for another reason. I've come across some people expressing a bit of concern. Some people a little bit worried that what if this game doesn't sell well? Is Housemarque going to get shut down? What's gonna happen? There's no telling how well this game's going to sell. I think the budget of this game was around $70 million. So the budget was definitely on the lower end. That helps take a lot of the pressure off. I will say this, though. Seeing this game review this way, 88 on a Metacritic or as a Metacritic score. Multiple people saying potential game of the year material. One of the most memorable games of the generation. This is stuff that Sony appreciates. Sony likes that. They like the prestige. They like, I guess what I'm trying to say is if Saros sells kind of soft, Sony's still going to be okay with that because they're like 88 on Metacritic, maybe multiple award nominations. They like that type of stuff. So, that's one, I would say, big benefit of seeing this game review. So, I mean, I hope it sells well. Obviously, we want to see it do well. Single player games deserve to sell well because we want to send the right message to the publishers that we want these types of games. But obviously, you gotta have interest in the game first and foremost. So, all in all, man, big congratulations to Housemarque. Look, we've talked for literally years about this generation, the PlayStation 5 generation. We've talked all about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. But, a bright spot has absolutely been Housemarque. They were here at the launch of the PS5. I think back to the PS5 reveal event. They showed the trailer for Returnal. They tell us it's going to be a PS5 exclusive, a very different type of game from what we've, would expect. Comes out in 2021. Amazing game. First new IP, first new single player IP from a PlayStation studio during this generation. One of the only new IPs for that matter. And then they follow it up, within 4 years, man, within 4 to 5 years of development time with Saros, and to see Saros basically, again, taking it a step further, got to tip my hat to, literally got to tip my hat to Housemarque for being a top tier studio, man. And I hope to continue to see them succeed. And I mean, you just got to wonder, how much further can they take it? What does the next evolution of Housemarque look like? I wonder. And Veneno comes in and drops another single member gift for you guys. Maybe wanting to start a bit of a single train here. Veneno, thank you so much for that, my friend. That brings us up to 17 on the day. We have a super chat from MVP Moss who says, would you say this year is better for games or last year? I mean, I'm leaning towards this year. Maybe some recency bias, but I don't know. I just feel like we're not even in May and it's been so strong, and looking at what's ahead, it's like it's only going to get better, which is kind of crazy to think. So honestly, I'm leaning more towards this year. Hold on one second, guys. Hold on. I have to respond to this. All right. The irony, even, you dropped the member gift, and that member gift went to somebody named Nintendo Gaming Channel. What's going on with these membership gifts, bro? What's going on? Returnal launched in April 30th, 2021. Saros will be launching April 30th, 2026. Exactly 5-year window between two releases. Yes, that's true. Exactly 5 years. Sony closed Bluepoint because they couldn't get a project greenlit. Housemarque is already prepping for their next game. Yeah, I mean, dude, I still don't understand why Sony closed Bluepoint. I mean, I know Bluepoint went like 5-6 years without releasing something, and it would be years until they could release something. But I don't know. To me, they were still worth keeping alive, dude. Absolutely. They only need like 3 million sales to be a success at 70 million at a 70 million budget. I think it can do it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't see a ton of hype around Saros. Like, the hype level for Saros is nowhere near what you see for games like Wolverine or Ghost of Yotei, or honestly, I would even say like maybe like Death Stranding 2. There may have been more hype, although maybe this is something closer to Death Stranding 2 in terms of how it's going to perform. But I do think word of mouth is stronger than ever in terms of how much that can affect games. And if Saros, I mean, the fact it's reviewing so well, I'm sure it's catching people's attention. But I think it can. I think it could definitely do 3 million. I mean, I look at the fact that when Returnal launched, I think it got close to 1 million sales, just about 1 million. And I know that sounds really bad, but it's like it launched as a true PS5 exclusive and was selling to about 8 million people. There were only like 8 to 9 million PS5 consoles out there. So, it's been multiplied, many times over now. They're going to be at almost 100 million PS5s, basically like 95 million PS5 players they're selling to. So that's a lot more people. That's many more prospective customers for your game, right? And buyers. So I do want to keep that in mind as well. MVP Moss with a $5 chat says, I feel like Housemarque should try something different with their next game, then bring us back to the bullet hell after just to keep that itch there. Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, obviously, I haven't even played Saros yet, but it's about to release. You do have to wonder, assuming this game is going to be a success, where they go next. Do they continue down this road of doing, like a bullet hell type game, fast-paced shooter, roguelike, or roguelite? Or do they try something completely different? I do think for Housemarque it would be quite a risk to completely deviate, but this is another reason I hope this game does really well, because the better it does, the more leeway they'll have to be able to experiment a little bit, which I'm not opposed to, certainly not. But yeah, their next game will obviously be a PS6 game. There is hype. PC players want a port. I know PC players have still been asking for it, but if the report from Jason Schreier is to be believed, that's not going to happen. They'll have to buy a PS5, I suppose. If they really want the game that bad, that might be their only way to get it. I can understand why they would be upset, though. Getting Returnal on PC and then finding out Saros isn't going to come to PC probably just feels like a massive tease. Sorry if I'm texting in between or have a little bit of a situation with Mrs. MBG and medical emergency with her mother. So still trying to figure out what's going on there. So if you're wondering what I'm doing there, that's what I'm doing. We are going to move on to the next topic, though. Am I buying Saros? Yes, I already I have my. Yeah, I have it pre-ordered already. But yeah, I do want to move on to the next topic. Obviously, we'll talk more about Saros. I'm going to play it myself, give you my thoughts on it, tell you how I feel it compares to Returnal and stuff like that. So that'll be coming up in the coming days and weeks. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's true. Yeah, they didn't get Returnal day one. We're still waiting to find out if the reporting we've been hearing about Sony being done with putting their single-player games on PC, we're still waiting to find out if that's true or not. And my assumption, like I said previously, is if it is true, we'll probably find out over the course of May at some point, because that's when Sony does their annual business meeting. But we do need to move to the next topic here, and we are going to be talking about Xbox. I do feel as though I would be remiss not to cover this, though, because this is... I think that ultimately what we're about to cover is pretty substantial, possibly. I can't guarantee it, but there's a major change happening inside of Xbox. And, we're sitting here watching Xbox Directs. There's an Xbox showcase coming up, and these games, I mean, let's face it, if you watch the last Xbox Direct, every single game they emphasized it's coming to PlayStation 5. Even with something like Forza Horizon 6, where it's like, it's still coming. It's a little bit delayed, but it's still coming. And it seems like it's not because they wanted to make it a time exclusive. It's because it's just literally not ready. But there's something very significant we have to cover here. Let me close some of these tabs real quick. Advertisers everywhere, man. Over on the Xbox Wire, they publish a new write-up. It was published by Asha Sharma and Matt Boutte. We are Xbox. This message was just sent to Team Xbox employees globally. So I just want to say first and foremost here, very interesting how they're handling this. This thing we're reading is essentially an internal email, I guess. They're like fusing PR. They're treating their employees like customers now. I don't know. It's weird. And Corey the Legend Landiga comes in and he tears open the 10-pack for you guys. He says, we got to at least hit the 25. We got to do it. I'm going to make sure we do it. He brings us up to 27 members on the day, over halfway to the goal, which is fantastic to see. Corey.
Holy shit.
Thank you so much for that, buddy. And before we dive into this, let me shake the treats. Feed the beast. Multiple beasts. Let's see. They're all sleeping right now. Corey's like, nah, F this Xbox talk. We need to feed the beast. I'm actually going to have to... Hold on. I just had to make sure he could hear it, because sometimes when I shake it from here, he doesn't hear it. Boss, is that you? There we are. He's like, I've arrived. Here you go, man. Enjoy. That's because we hit another goal. Dude, he's so sleepy. He's just like looking up at me like, is it treat time? Boss, they're here. You're good. You're good, man. There we go. He can enjoy his snacks. Thank you again, Corey, for the support, man. Very much appreciate it. If you guys want to continue to contribute to the goal, feel free to do so. Does Boss have bad hearing? I don't think so. It's just kind of soundproofed in here somewhat. Between the foam panels on the wall, the doors, there's like 2 doors. So I don't think he has bad hearing. Oh, yeah, Luna's there too. Luna's there. Yeah, appreciate all the support you guys are showing, though. We did get some support earlier as well with the Members Lounge, so thank you for that. We are going to continue this topic, though. We have to go over this big email that Microsoft put out publicly. It sounds like they're making some very, very, very big changes to Xbox. And, people are getting excited. Can't have that now. Incredible hypocrisy. Oh, God, the hypocrisy is on another level, but we'll save that for later. All right. Guys, make sure you're hitting that like button. We're at 85 likes. 15 more, we hit 100. We are Xbox. Dear team. Xbox different. Okay, I'm going to have such a hard time with this if I don't just center myself. We can do this. We can get through this. We are Xbox. We are Xbox. How am I going to do this, bro? Dear team, we the best. All right. I'll be serious this time. I'll be serious. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's time to get serious. Dear team, we suck. All right. No, for real. Xbox has always been different. We started with a simple idea: games should bring people together through shared experiences that led to the first Xbox in 2001, Xbox Live in 2002, and new ways to connect, from friends lists and achievements to parties and play across devices. Today, Xbox reaches over 500 million players around the world with some of the most important franchises in entertainment. From the beginning, Xbox was built by people willing to try things that others wouldn't. We placed a consumer bet inside an enterprise company because we believed gaming would define the living room, and we were at risk of missing it. That spirit has carried us through the last 25 years, and it is required to carry us forward. We have work to do. Players are frustrated. So again, Benito, don't tell me that, bro. Been there. Oh boy. MBG, please find a way to restrain your hate for Xbox. I will. I'm going to restrain it. They have work to do. All right. Hey, whoa. I just talked about Saros for like an hour and 15 minutes, bro. Also, if you count like the 15 minutes I talked about it earlier, it's like almost an hour and a half. What's wrong with that? Well, I'll tell you what. Before I continue on here, if Xbox goes in the direction they're making it sound like they're going in, we probably will be talking about them less. Sincerely. Because the biggest reason we've continued to talk about Xbox is because they announced in the last 2 years, like, all their games are coming over. And then, yeah, since then, their games have been coming over. So it's like covering, it's like no different than when we covered Assassin's Creed, you know? Assassin's Creed Resynced, which actually we have that on as a topic as well. Anyway, how are people getting mad, dude? You're saying, oh, great, another Xbox stream? All right, look, I'll be as polite as I can. Yes, we are covering an Xbox-related topic. We're going to be discussing how this pertains to PlayStation. Okay? So if you're not into that, it's okay if you don't want to partake. I understand. All right? But do keep in mind, we talk plenty about PlayStation and PlayStation-related topics. We just got done talking about a PlayStation first-party game for over an hour. All right? Yeah, we're always probably going to talk about Xbox to some extent. Well, hey, you know, look. Hey, I want to throw this out here, too. Herman, Hiroki, somebody. You can drop a whole PlayStation blog post talking like this if you want, and we'll cover it. Oh yeah, Lady Gamer, you didn't have to delete that message. That's okay. That's okay. MBG, isn't it strange and at the very least hypocritical that until yesterday exclusives were considered outdated and extremely anti-consumer? Now everyone wants that back on the Xbox side? Yes. Yes. The answer to that question is yes. And we'll talk about that. Not too deeply, but there will be a level of discussion about it. There has to be. Oh, Clark, you want some, bro? All right, hold on. I'm sorry for all the interruptions. All right, so they say here, we have work to do. Players are frustrated. New feature drops on console have been less frequent. Our presence on PC isn't strong enough. Pricing is getting harder for people to keep up with, and core experiences like search, discovery, social, and personalization still feel too fragmented. Developers and publishers are asking for more too: better tools, better insights, and a platform that helps them grow faster. At the same time, a new generation of players is coming online with different expectations. Their time is split across games, media, and everything else competing for attention. They expect more content in familiar places, want to shape the worlds they play in, and want to create and socialize together, not just play together. These changes are happening as the industry reshapes around us. Console remains large and stable. Windows now represents more players and more hours and is increasingly where competition is most intense. Players have access to more games than ever, even at the cost and time to build blockbuster titles even as the cost and time to build blockbuster titles continues to rise, putting pressure on what gets made and how risk is taken. Some of the biggest recent hits are coming from small teams or even single creators, and places like Roblox are producing experiences that rival major franchises in scale. More players are also choosing subscriptions and services as their primary way to play, with expectations set around instant access, ongoing value, and libraries that evolve continuously. The industry is becoming global and competitive. More than half of the market's revenue, players, and growth are happening outside of our core markets. But the rest of the world is not just a large market. Developers there are increasingly competing with the most established Western studios, combining scale, speed, and willingness to reinvent genres many once considered mature. The model that got us here won't be the one that takes us forward. Very interesting. Continues, Xbox will be where the world plays. Damn. What does Xbox become in this next era? Xbox will be where the world plays and creates. We build a global platform that connects players and creates everywhere. Consoles at the foundation, delivering premium experience, and cloud brings that experience to any device. You can play where you want, and your games, progress, friends, and identity stay with you across console, PC, mobile, and cloud. Xbox will be built to be affordable, personal, and open. We will offer flexible pricing so it's easy to get started and keep playing. The experience will adapt to you, letting you customize how you play, helping you find what you'll love, and connecting you with the right people. And we will be open to all creators, from individuals to the largest studios, giving everyone the tools to reach a global audience and keep their games growing over time. Our new North Star will be daily active players. We will execute this through 4 priorities: hardware, content, experience, and services. So they segment this, okay? And they start with hardware. Hardware, they have 4 bullet points, and I'll read them in order. Stabilize Gen 9 as a healthy and high-quality base. Deliver Project Helix to lead in performance and play your console and PC games. Lead in comfortable, personal, high-performance accessories. Build a strong ecosystem that expands choice and reach. Now they have content. Under here, they have 5 bullet points. Grow and extend an enduring portfolio of franchises players love. Evolve our third-party partnerships and strengthen our 5-year slate. Expand to China, merging markets, and mobile-first audiences. Maintain and grow in live service and long-term stewardship. Elevate creator-centric platforms like Minecraft, The Elder Scrolls, and Sea of Thieves. Experience, 3 bullet points. Fix the fundamentals for players and partners. Make Xbox the best place for developers and creators to build and grow. Overhaul discovery, customization, social, and personalization to connect the community. Services, they have 4. Fortify Game Pass with clear differentiation and sustainable economics. Return the business to durable growth with strong cost discipline. Make cloud play feel native, fast, and reliable across TVs and low-cost devices. Use M&A deliberately to accelerate growth where organic paths are too slow. Along the way, we will reevaluate our approach to exclusivity, windowing, and AI, and share more as we learn and decide. All right, so let's break it down, this portion here. Before I do, first off, chat, what do we think so far? This is what Microsoft sent to all their employees. Now they sent it out publicly to everybody. So we're not finished yet. We're like halfway through. What do you think about everything that they just laid out? It's great news. Don't care. You are slop. What? Helix $600? Is that what you took away from this? Xbox butter. Corpo talk. They're going back to the 360 days. Yawns. Interesting. Interesting. A lot of differing opinions. Well, let me break this down a little bit here. So I think, let me look over what bullet points really stand out to me. They say they want to expand into China and emerging markets. All right. I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking about this. A lot of what they're saying here, here's what this is. This is my take on it. Just one person. They are basically reiterating everything they've been saying for the past, 7, 8 years, which is fine. It's them letting us know that they're still looking to expand, right? Like when they say things like build a strong ecosystem that expands choice and reach. That's them just reaffirming they're still going in that direction. Grow and extend their portfolio of franchises that players love. Yes, we've been hearing that for years, and they've been doing that. You know, how well that expansion has gone is debatable, but they've been doing it nonetheless. They talk about live service games, fix the fundamentals with players and partners. I said something earlier that I said this in the members lounge. I want to say it here again because I think it's worth reiterating. This to me is very familiar. This to me, it reminds me of 2014. Back in 2014, we're coming off of the Xbox One reveal. It was a complete disaster. Obviously, we don't need to rehash that. Everybody knows what happened. But almost immediately after, Don Matrick, the guy who was in charge, fired. Multiple people, part of that team, fired. Phil Spencer's the guy. Phil Spencer's up. I remember hearing that Phil Spencer was taking over the Xbox division, and I remember perusing the internet and seeing what the reactions were. How do people feel about Phil? Everybody was very hyped. Everybody felt like Phil was the right guy. Everybody felt great. They felt fantastic. There was an interview that was conducted almost immediately. Dead serious interview. The middle of like Microsoft headquarters. Phil Spencer comes in. He's wearing his black shirt, looking real good. Major Nelson is interviewing him and asking him the questions. And he's giving these rapid fire answers, telling us it's about the gamer. We're getting back to the core. We're bringing Xbox back. And he made some pretty big decisions almost immediately after. Phil Spencer removed the Kinect. He dropped the price of the Xbox One. He brought backwards compatibility. He talked to the fans. He hyped up the fans. He said, we're going to be talking to developers. We're going to be getting back to what Xbox was. And I just have to be completely honest when I say this, is that reading this and listen, and I understand Asha Sharma has to do this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. She literally has to do this. She's the new CEO. She has to lay the foundation. But it just sounds very, very, very familiar. And so what I'm really looking for, I think, is what a lot of people are looking for as we go over this. And it's like, what is different? I'm going to tell you what's different. Okay. What's different about what she has laid out so far? We have a couple more things we're going to talk about. But so far, what's different is not maintaining and growing live service games. It's not building a strong ecosystem that expands choice and reach. So much of this, Project Helix is going to lead in performance. So much of this is just repeating and, just laying it down once again. Just, this is what we're doing. There are some things in here, though, that basically are direct. I guess the best way to word it would be they're now going to be doing more things that PlayStation has already been doing. And I say that because this is where Asha Sharma might be a little bit different. Perhaps. This might be where Asha Sharma is different from, say, Phil Spencer in recent years. Where if you go over these bullet points, you begin to realize that some of the things they're saying they're now like, yes, now they're going to start doing some of the things that Sony's been trying to do. So, for example, they say this one in particular, expand into China, emerging markets. Although they do say mobile first audiences, that's slightly different. But this is where, okay, Asha Sharma, I'm assuming she took a look at the fact that Sony's been very aggressive in trying to expand in China and other emerging markets. This is an area where, honestly, under Phil Spencer, they seemingly haven't tried to do that at all. Kind of surprisingly, right? Where people have been kind of asking, like, why aren't you being much more aggressive? Sony's out here striking deals with, doing things like the China Hero Project, striking deals with Phantom Blade Zero and Stellar Blade. And these are all things that Microsoft absolutely could be doing as well. So maybe this is where you're going to start seeing like, oh, Sony, see, if she's serious about this, Sony's going to have more competition in this area. They mentioned here maintain and grow live service games. Yeah. They've been doing that. Sony's obviously doing that too. I wouldn't say that's a direct copy. But they list here, fix the fundamentals and for players and partners. Will be interesting to see what that means. There's one other thing they say here that this is where Asha Sharma, we might want to pay attention. Sony might also want to pay attention because this to me is, I feel like she's been studying up on some of the things that Sony's been doing, which makes a lot of sense. Because if you're in Asha Sharma's position, you're just coming in, you're fresh, everything's new to you. The first thing she's going to do is look at the market leader in this space. Who's your competitor? Who was your competitor? If they beat you, how did they beat you? If they're winning, how are they winning? Right? And I think she's doing that because one of the things she lists here, her and Matt Booty, I still find it funny that Matt Booty's here. Like Matt Booty just feels like he's just here. They say, hold on, where is it? I lost it. Make Xbox the best place for developers and creators to build and grow. Overhaul discovery, customization, social and personal personalization to connect with the community, but specifically talking about how they really want to focus on, making Xbox a much better place for developers. This to me is something that for some reason, Phil, he just didn't get. I don't know if it was him or the people he placed in charge below him to run this, where like this is Mark Cerny's specialty. Mark Cerny and his engineering team, it's what proliferated the PS4 and really even just got better with the PS5, where the first thing Sony did was have Mark Cerny come out for an hour. And even though a lot of us didn't understand half of what he was saying, the developers did. But one of the main things he emphasized was like the first and most fundamental thing when they were building out the PlayStation ecosystem for the PS5 is we want it to be as easy as possible for devs to get in and get their games on this platform, to make games for PlayStation. And therefore, it paid off because PlayStation became the lead in that, like, I mean, let's face it, some of the problems we've heard with Xbox this generation with the Series X and S, it's not just because of like the Series S being underpowered or having to scale down. It's the development environment. This is why what we're hearing about what's going on in the back end with Sony, with the new SDK, some major changes done with the SDK. Microsoft, I'm assuming what they're saying here will ultimately translate to that, where it's like, yes, you guys need to follow Sony's lead on that because it's really going to benefit you. However, I don't know that Microsoft's doing it to compete with Sony as much as they're taking a cue from Sony and maybe going to apply it more so towards the PC space and try to be aggressive towards Valve. That might be the plot twist here. But I just want to point out that it does seem like Asha Sharma is a little bit more willing to take a look at some of the things that Sony's been doing this generation that have worked for them, that have benefited them. Because regardless of what anybody says, yes, Sony has had mistakes. They've made mistakes. They've had a couple of pitfalls, but they've done some really good things as well that are certainly, responsible for why they're the market leader currently. And so I just think that it's completely natural. Look at what they're doing. You don't have to copy them for, down to the T, but there's probably a few things you can learn. you know, and that is going to benefit Xbox if they pull through with that. El Unico, you're saying, don't forget, Matt Booty said he wants to spend Sony out of business. Now he's second in command. That's true. That is true. You know, I'll be honest, man, like looking back at that, crazy thing to say, true thing to say though, but I almost just feel like Matt Booty, and it's no offense to the guy, I don't know. I barely have, I mean, I've barely heard him in interviews, but he just, based off of the emails that we read from him in the past, he just seems like the kind of guy that's just going to kind of say whatever he thinks is going to align with. It's probably why he's in the position he's in. I mean, I do think he was serious, but I think he was saying that because he thinks, I don't know. It could also have been one of those things where he's like, I have a genius idea. Like, you know what, guys? Yeah, I know how we kill Sony. Let's just spend him out of business. Like he expected everybody to be like, yeah. But to be fair, I mean, dude, look at what Phil pursued. He said that, and maybe Phil took his idea. Maybe Phil was like, yeah, let's buy Bethesda. Let's buy ABK. We'll do what Sony won't. We'll do what Sony can't. Matt Booty's crazy, bro. His last name is crazy too. Absolutely wild. We have Titus. Thank you so much, and Unico, thank you for the super chat, man. We have Titus. He says, MBG, a friend is at my place, and I've just showed him the stream where you showed my physical game collection, the platinum trophy, and the canvas pictures. He liked your reaction and you as a person. Well, thank you. Tell him I said that. Well, I'm assuming he's listening. Thank you, whoever you are. I'm glad you like the stream, and I'm glad you like me. They like me. They really like me. Yeah, that was cool, Titus. I really like your sub there, man. I like your cat too. And thank you for the super chat. I also need to make sure I didn't accidentally ignore any direct donations. No, we're good. Okay. All right, so let's go down to the most important thing that was mentioned here. And I do want to highlight that this was mentioned at the very bottom. I think that is important to highlight because, you know, it's one of these things that everybody's kind of tethering themselves to, understandably, because it's the biggest question mark in the room right now. It's the biggest question left unanswered. And I think we got an update on this where Asha Sharma did respond to a question earlier. I think somebody told me it was Steven Totillo who asked. And she said right now they have nothing more to say about exclusivity. Just that they might start experimenting. And so at the end here, before we continue, there's still more here, not a whole lot more, but they say along the way, we will reevaluate our approach to exclusivity, windowing, and AI. Now, when they say windowing, if I'm reading that correctly, they're talking about exclusivity windows, correct? Did they mean to type Windows or something? When they say windowing, that's how I'm reading that. You're not sure Xbox can make Helix easier to develop for than PS6. It seems like a tall order. But the fact that they're going to try is good. I do think that if Microsoft is like with Helix, you just have to make a PC version, basically. Just like a Windows PC version. You don't have to make an Xbox version anymore. That will make things a lot easier, I think, for devs automatically because they're like, oh, well, we were doing that anyway. You see what I'm saying? Like that, in a sense, does help them. But in the console space, again, we won't know until we see Helix and PS6 out there where they stand, how people perceive it. Do they perceive Helix truly as a console or more as a PC device? But either way, that should make it easier for developers. Apparently, the Xbox Series X and S development environment was a little bit tough. From what I've heard, developers have had a couple of issues with it. Not like major issues, but in terms of stacking it up against the PlayStation 5 development environment, the PS5 dev environment was just the easier of the two and the simpler of the two. It had like a better tool set. The tools, you know? So we'll see what changes, though. But yeah, do we think exclusivity really truly is back on the table for Xbox? Well, I can only give my take on this, and here's where I stand currently. I think Asha Sharma has identified that talking about exclusivity, mentioning exclusivity, entertaining the notion of exclusivity as a possibility works in their favor. I can't help but notice that this was one of the first things she did, but I think the reason why she's not willing to commit to anything. Notice how her nor anybody at Xbox will commit to anything, because I do believe her. I do believe she is in the process of learning. She's looking things over. She's trying to sort out if this makes any sense. Did it make sense for Microsoft and Phil Spencer to walk away from exclusivity? Does it make any sense to walk it back? Does it make sense to be somewhere in the middle? I mean, let's keep in mind that Asha Sharma now has a pretty good amount of data to go over, where it's like you've had about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, depending on when we think about the first Xbox game launching on PlayStation. But there's quite a bit of data for her to look at and maybe determine, like, does this make sense? So when you think about Asha Sharma looking over the data, she looks at something like Forza Horizon 5. One person says that sold 5 million copies on PlayStation 5. So obviously, why do exclusivity? Another person will say, yeah, but it came to PS5 4 years later. But then a third person will say, so does this mean we could potentially sell 10 million copies if we were there day one? It's a tough one. It's a tough position to be in, where it's like any one of those things, are like all of those things, some of them are true, some of them could be true. The only thing that is for certain is that Forza Horizon is a big franchise and a desirable franchise. But then you look at maybe something like South of Midnight, you look at The Outer Worlds 2. These games seemingly like completely flopped on PlayStation, but I don't think they did much better anywhere else. But then we hear rumblings that Gears of War E-Day may be made exclusive. Gears of War E-Day. Now that's a big one. Orange Crush Gaming, a member for 71 months. Orange Crush, thank you for that. That's amazing. Saying, no, they can't. They don't sell many games just on Xbox. They need the player base. PlayStation has the player base. And that's the biggest argument as to why they won't go back to it, right? Where the player base for PlayStation, and it's not even just the size of the player base. It's the fact that it's a player base that is willing to buy video games at full price. May I remind people that Forza Horizon 5 was sold at full price, dude. It was sold at full price. So my read on this is that I think Asha Sharma is going to be willing to experiment with exclusivity again to find out herself. I think that timed exclusivity might be on the table. For example, if we think of Gears of War E-Day, when it's shown off 30-minute direct this June, looks awesome. Gears going back to the roots. People are hyped. No PS5. The question is this. Will they make it clear? Oh, yeah, no, it's still coming to PS5. Just later on. Or will they not say anything? Or will we see what we've been conditioned to see for the last year and a half and 2 years, and the PS5 logo will just be right there? All I know is she's talking about it. She keeps mentioning it. She's responding to people. She's making it clear that she's undecided on it. And I look at Xbox and the position they're in, and I won't lie to you, I don't know how they could make exclusivity work unless this is the big one. If everything they're laying out here, we are Xbox, We're getting back to the core. We're getting back to the foundation. We're going back to the roots. We're going back to what Xbox is, what it was, what it's supposed to be. If they're serious about that, exclusivity could absolutely be the way to go. But that's only if they're serious about that. If they're only serious about saying these things, but at the end of the day, every decision they make is dictated by, yeah, but we're not profitable. So just be aggressive towards becoming profitable. Then there's no way exclusivity could work. I guess what I'm trying to say is there will have to be short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. And this is where I question. Yes, I question the talk because it's like, well, I thought Phil basically had that same leeway. One could argue he did. He had 10 years. But very interesting to think that Asha Sharma is taking up this position where Phil Spencer took over in 2014. Think about how many first-party studios Microsoft had in 2014 to try to make it work with the Xbox One versus how many first-party studios Asha Sharma has in 2026 to try to make it work with Project Helix. What's my read on how much... I'm not reading anything that way, Flatted Fifth. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not viewing it through that lens. But feel free to discuss that amongst yourselves. Guys, I do need to give you a heads up. I am going to have to be finish the stream by 3 o'clock. All right. So, all right. I'm just gonna give you that heads up now. I have till 3 o'clock basically. Hold on. All right. Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, so for those who are just joining, yeah, I'm talking to Mrs. MBG. Just like a medical emergency with her mother right now. She's at the hospital with her, and yeah, I don't know, things are not looking too good. So yeah, if I'm a little bit disconnected, that's why. But yeah, I'll be good to stream until 3. We'll be good on that. If you see me just being, if there's just like dead air in between me talking, it's because I'm trying to answer Mrs. MBG here. So appreciate your understanding. Yeah, we were supposed to be doing morning with the missus. Well, I can't do anything at the moment. You know, there's nothing I can do. So, you know, this is the best thing I can be doing right now. You know, streaming, doing my job here. I can't go. There's nowhere to go. You know, there's nowhere to go. But in the next hour, I will have a responsibility I can handle. So, so we'll finish this conversation out for the next hour. And yeah, and then we'll just wrap it up and we'll see what the rest of the day brings. So, I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, we still have a little bit of time. We have an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, I perfect image. Yeah, you got it, bro. I got some other stuff I have to other responsibilities, But I appreciate you guys hanging with me today. The past couple days has been a little bit all over the place, and I'm not sure what the next couple days are going to bring. So we'll try to make the most out of this next like hour and 15 minutes we have. All right. All right. Yeah. Yeah. It's stressful situations that nobody can really do anything about. We'll just have to. It's just one of these things where all I can do is kind of sit back and try not to ruminate too much. So I will continue to distract myself as best I can. Well, we finished going over this Xbox report. All right. So I'll get back on topic here. Um, Mr. Din, what's up, man? Shadowlink, Mikey Moo. Seen a couple new people joining. How much do random question, how much do I think a sealed copy of Concord is worth right now to a game collector? I'm not sure. You could probably find out on eBay. I can't imagine it's that much. It hasn't been long enough. But getting back to the topic discussion, Xbox exclusivity, will they do it? Won't they do it? I'm in a position right now where I'm leaning towards they won't do it. I'm leaning towards that not because it's like, oh, I don't want them to. If you want to know what I want is I would love to see Xbox go back to exclusivity. I would love for Asha Sharma at the Xbox Game Showcase to make an announcement and basically say, like, after Fable, we're not releasing any more games on PlayStation. If you want to play our games, you have to buy an Xbox. That would be so awesome. Because that falls in line with this whole idea of getting back to what Xbox is. What I find strange about everything that's happening right now with Xbox and everything that the new CEO is saying and the messaging is that, well, that's the thing, is like she's talking about Xbox like it kind of lost its way. Xbox lost its way. It lost its identity. It's fallen away from that. But the thing about that is like, yeah, because it's because the console stopped selling. And when the console stopped selling, the games had to go other places. And as the games went other places, Xbox fans started to lose more and more heart. It felt very much like, I don't want to say like Xbox had given up, but like they were defeated. You know what I'm saying? Like they couldn't do anything. Like, yes, we are putting games on. Like, I think people forget that just 2 years ago, Phil Spencer was on a podcast saying we're not doing this because we want to. We're doing it because we have to think about the overall health of the Xbox brand. And my question would be like, what changed since then? Could it be that the board of Microsoft just decided, you know what? We thought going full multi-plat and putting everything everywhere was going to save us and make the biggest difference in the world, and it didn't. So let's go back. Is it possible that somebody inside of Xbox convinced the higher-ups at Microsoft that, no, you got to go back to the way things were? I'm not convinced of that yet. We're seeing signs of that. We're hearing about that. We're hearing about it. They're saying things. There is action being taken. They reduced the price of Game Pass, but they did take Call of Duty out. So there's some give and take here and there, but most of it is talk right now. It's planning. It's saying what their intention is, what their hopes are, what they want to achieve, and that's all fine, well, and good. But it's the execution of it that I still hesitate to really buy into, because it's like, well, I know why you're here. Like, I know why you're releasing Halo on PlayStation. I know exactly why you're releasing Halo on PlayStation. I've been here to witness the entire run that led up to this. I listened to every word. I watched every event. I've been part of it. Like, I know why you're here. My question is not whether My question isn't, will you go back to exclusivity? Will you actually try to get Xbox back to where it's supposed to be? My question is, will you do that knowing you're not going to make as much money? Knowing that it's going to take a longer time to actually make this thing sustainable and profitable, and it's not going to happen overnight, and it ain't going to be easy. That's my question. And I just still get the sense of what I'm reading here. I get this sense of like they're trying to have it both ways a little bit, where they're trying to rally the fans, convince the fans that they're bringing it back. But I tend to wonder, like, here's what's hard to believe. Let me walk it back a little bit. What's hard for me to believe, it's certainly possible, but it's difficult to believe, is that for the last like 3 to 4 years, we have seen Phil Spencer, the head of Microsoft Gaming, floundering in an unbelievable way, in a way that's just like, what is happening? And especially the last couple of years. And I use the word floundering, but maybe the more appropriate word is scrambling. That might be the better word to use, where decisions were made, bets were placed, pressure mounted. And so when we see him get to a point where he's out here practically making a fool of himself, I'm not saying it's going to be Starfield or Indiana Jones, okay? So don't assume that everything's coming. And then within months, it's announced. The big final announcement is Indiana Jones is coming to PS5, and here we are with Starfield on PS5. It's like, why would he do that? And we talked about this. We talked about it at length. He did this because he was told to do it. He was pressured to do it. The board of Microsoft, the C-suite, put the pressure on Phil where it's like, you need to make this work. We don't care what it takes. My question is simple. What changed? I'm supposed to believe that everybody who is making those decisions, everybody who is saying those things and putting that pressure, laying that down, I'm supposed to believe that just disappeared? That they just had a change of heart overnight? Again, it's possible. Anything's possible, but I am not convinced of that because it sounds too convenient. It sounds too good to be true. Where it's like, again, I have to ask the question, what changed? Because something changed. Could it be that they just wanted Phil out? I don't know. I've heard some interesting conspiracy theories. I've heard people theorize that, they put this unrealistic pressure on Phil because they wanted him, they set him up for failure. But that doesn't make any sense to me because it's like, what do you mean? This is a multi-trillion-dollar corporation. If they want somebody out, they're going to get him out. They're not going to play these games. So it's not so much just the idea of exclusivity in and of itself, where it's like, my games are not your games. This is my console's games. It's not about console warring. It's not about the fanboy flame wars. This is more about the larger business side of it, because you can only make sense of games like Halo being marketed on PlayStation. You can only make sense of that. And a game like Starfield launching on PlayStation, you only make sense of that by understanding the business realities that led to that happening. And when you trace it all the way back, I look at everything Asha Sharma's saying. I read everything she's saying. I listen to what she's saying. And I question, but like, what's different? You're changing the logo? Cool. You're getting rid of the term Microsoft Gaming and switching it to Xbox? Cool. Those are good things, but what does that really mean? You know, like, I guess I just look at this and I just ask like a greater question. Like, when they say things like Xbox will be there or be where the world plays and creates, we have work to do. Console remains large and stable. Again, it's like, I'm going to be honest, man. Like, I just start to question, like, what's actually being said here? Like, what does this all mean? What does it translate to? Because I'm seeing people getting excited, and that's fine. I'm not telling them not to get excited. I'm not saying you can't be excited. I'm not saying you can't be hopeful. Have all those things. But I'm somebody who's been watching this unfold for the last 12 years, and I'm just going to ask the question that I think everybody should be asking, which is like, but what does this actually mean? And here's the thing. Someone might say, well, MBG, look at what they just did with Game Pass. That's what it means. And I'm like, undoing things? Going back? Okay. I hope so. Like, I mean that. I'm not saying that condescendingly. I'm saying that thoroughly. I'm saying that genuinely. I hope they go back, because do you know what that means for me as a PlayStation player? Only good things. Only good things. Do you know what it means for me as a PlayStation player if Microsoft does go back to exclusivity and does decide, actually, we do care about console sales? That means Sony is paying attention. That means you just got Sony's attention. You signaled to them for the last 2 years, sit back, take a load off, light up the cigar. You're good. You're coasting now. And we're going to make some money with you. You turn that all the way around. It is a big 180, and it's a sudden one. But you go back, that's only good for this entire thing. That will breed more competition. That will ensure, no matter what, there will be more competition, and it will ensure that Sony cannot get too comfortable. Because even though I still think Sony's doing great things, I'm not opposed to them having to do more. I'm not opposed to them feeling any levels of pressure. But again, my question boils down to just this. It's just one simple question. Why are you choosing to do that now? What changed? How are you planning on making your money? I have to ask that question. That's the same question I had to ask with Game Pass. I asked that question over and over and over again. I'm whatever. The fanboys want to cheer it on. Not even the fanboys, but just people. Oh, Game Pass is a great deal. $1. I get it. That's all fine, well, and good. It looks good, and it seems good in the short term, in the interim. My question is, Microsoft, I know you're in this to make money. How are you planning on making your money? We see how that unfolded. We see how that played out. They didn't make money. They lost money. And then they lost even more money by making investments in an attempt to try to make money and make money back on Game Pass, and they still haven't figured that out. So this is where I have to ask. I have to ask Asha Sharma. I know she wasn't appointed as the CEO of Xbox to lose more money. I know that for a fact. I know she wasn't appointed as the CEO to just make the same, literally repeat the same mistakes that Phil Spencer made. I know that for a fact. I also know that Microsoft is in the business of video games to make money like every other company and corporation involved. I know that for a fact. This is why so much of what's being said barely means anything to me. And I'm not sure why it would mean that much to anybody else when it's like, we've been down this road time and time again, and the result has always been the same. And if you're banking on, well, it's a different person this time, different person, same company, different person, same corporation. Different person, same Microsoft CEO and CFO, Satya Nadella, Amy Hood. I just ask people to keep that in mind because until yeah, very likely same goals. None of this is a bad thing, by the way, per se. I know I'm framing it like this is bad. I'm not trying to frame it that way. It may come off that way. I'm just framing it in the sense of I think there is a better outcome here overall. And I am extremely skeptical that that's the outcome we're going to get because I've been following this company and following this platform for the past 12 years. And I have yet to see them not like literally step on every single banana peel laid out in front of them to a point where it's like you're doing it on purpose at this point. You know, I know Asha Sharma is a different CEO. I know she's a new person coming in, and I think she's using that to her advantage. I think the marketing is using that to their advantage, as they should. That is a smart thing to do. Do you know how many marketing PR wins Microsoft just racked up in the last 2 months? And especially in the last couple of weeks? They know what they're doing. And that's not again, I'm not faulting anybody. If you're like, because if PlayStation was doing something similar, yeah, I'd be excited too. I'm just asking people to have a healthy level of skepticism because I do believe that until the bigger questions are not answered, getting an answer would be nice, but played out. It has honestly become a I'll believe it when I see it type situation. MBG, I'll ask again, are you not aware or will you not cover what the head developers and heads of Bethesda and Halo Studios said about Microsoft? I might not be aware of it. It depends on what you're talking about exactly. I'll tell you if I know what you're talking about if you elaborate. There's another new insider gaming report or insider report on Fair Games. Uh-oh. Who's dropping the report now? Oh, geez. Oh, I think that didn't we read this one already? Insider Gaming. Oh, new info maybe. Exclusive Fair Game struggles to find the fun in the latest pre-alpha playtest. See, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Like Microsoft, if you're serious, look at this. Windows wide open, bro. You got Sony over here being like, man, we can't figure out how to make fair games fun, man. Damn it. Oh, Pete. Oh, yeah. So if you're talking about Pete Hines, I actually did cover that in a previous stream. Pete Hines did not have kind words for Microsoft. But you're celebrating Sony pulling away from PC. Well, it's because I've always made it clear, man, that like I had to reluctantly just be okay with Sony embracing PC, where it's not what I wanted because I don't care. I don't play on PC. I'm not going to sit here and virtue signal and pretend that oh my God, these poor PC players can't play Saros. I don't care. Just like they don't care if I can't play fucking Counter-Strike on my PS5, you know? Like, who cares? You are where you are and you're enjoying what you want to enjoy. You know? That's fine. My whole thing is I did believe Sony was going in this direction because they were. And I just was like, okay, well, if Microsoft is doing it and now even Sony's doing it, Valve has already been doing it to a degree, to a lesser extent, just less intentionally. I just figured, okay, everybody around me is telling me this is the future. This is where they're going. And the day I see, Sony come out and they're like, we're putting Helldivers on Xbox, I'm like, well, fuck. Helldivers on Xbox, Horizon, Lego on Switch. I guess this is it. This is the slow end, and we're wrapping it up. We are truly moving, and I was ready for that. I was. Where it's like nobody can argue about anything now. You know, exclusivity is gone. It's done. I was fully prepared for that. But when suddenly it's actually, wait, hold on. The game's not over yet. It's not over yet. And then we find out, no, they're going back to exclusivity. I know there's still no official news, but and if they're wrong, or if the news is wrong, and actually Sony's like, we didn't change anything, then it's like, okay, well, I guess we're just back to this is where we are. You know, I'll tell you what, if Sony backs away from, if the reports for Sony are false, then there's no chance in hell I'm ever going to believe Microsoft would ever go back to exclusivity. Maybe Sony got word of this. This is another thing. Maybe Sony got some insider information of their own about what's going on with Project Helix. Keep in mind, Mark Cerny is collabing with AMD. You know? In other words, Mark Cerny probably knows every single facet of what's going on with the Microsoft side. You know? I have no doubt about that. With the hardware, you know, and Microsoft's plans from that end. Maybe Sony got word before the announcement that Phil was, I mean, IGN got word before it happened. So if IGN knew, fuck, Sony had to have known Phil's retiring. And Microsoft is getting a new person. Maybe that was enough to scare Sony to be like, we don't know what this new person's going to do. We're not going to take a chance. I guess I'm just trying to say here that, like, yeah, I am a console traditionalist. I'm not against exclusivity, and I can't pretend to be because I never have been. If I try to say I'm against exclusivity, it means I'm lying. It means I'm telling you something that I don't actually feel. Like I'm claiming to feel a certain way that I don't, and I'm not going to lie. That's the last thing I'm going to do, you know? Whether it's popular or not, I mean, I've always maintained, even when I was accepting, okay, I guess Sony is getting ready to eventually go multiplat. I said, screw it. You know, at this point, I mean, if you're going to go in this direction, why not put Death Stranding Day 1 on PC? Test Wolverine out. Go for it. Why not? Because if this is what you're doing, then why am I going to fight against it? There's nothing to fight here. The decision's already been made. You're already doing it. This is the future of gaming. I saw the pitfalls as well, where I'm like, dude, wait until people realize how bad things can get when everything becomes a homogenous blob. It's fine, though. If that's what people want, that's what it reminds me of the digital thing, where it's like people who are saying they don't care about physical games, they are totally fine with the digital-only future. It's like the day physical games are literally completely dead and gone, you're going to realize what you gave up. You're going to realize that actually it's better to have some of these things around that maybe don't make complete sense to you in that moment, but they actually have a role to play. And so I just basically gave up on it, where I'm like, I'm not fighting this fight because even Sony isn't fighting it. What's the point? But that's where it's like, if you give me the signal that not only is Sony maybe going back to it, but now Microsoft is signaling they might, I'm like, okay, let's go. Everybody pick yourself up by your bootstraps. It's time. We have Gaming Survivor, a member for 26 months. He says, F Xbox. Let them cry, moan, and wail like the bunch of babies they are. Exclusives, no exclusives. They'll always be fourth place after next playground. Bro said after next playground. Gaming Survivor coming in. I love the profile picture. He's coming in, triple roundhousing. 1, 2, 3. Maybe a little low kick at the end for good measure. I mean, honestly, man, like, I try not to acknowledge the radicalism anymore. It's hard not to because it does find its way to me. I try not to acknowledge the radical. I mean, one could argue you're being radical, Gaming Survivor. I'm assuming you're. Don't tell me if you're joking. I'm going to assume you're joking. But no, I mean, like, dude, I've encountered some crazy Xbox fans. Listen, man. I have witnessed in the last couple of weeks a 180. Like, they should call the next Xbox the Xbox 180. That's what they should call it. Not Project Helix, when they actually announced the name, Xbox 180. That's what they should call it, because it's the perfect name to represent their most insane fans. Where it's like, I'm not upset with them. I'm not. I mean that because it's like, I know. I know. I've known. We've all known. They've worked so hard. Certain establishments, if you will, have worked so hard to demonize the traditional model, to demonize the traditional console model, to demonize exclusives, to demonize Sony and Nintendo's way of doing things. Meanwhile, you have the new CEO signaling, we might just start doing some of that again. And you're already seeing her face being put in place of Jesus. Real stuff happening, by the way, on the internet. And it's like, okay. It's hard for me to be upset about any of it because it's like, good. Good. Because, all it really does, whether they know it or not at the end of the day, all it really does is it just simply says, you guys are right. That's all it does. And of course, this isn't about being pompous or being arrogant, but it is about maybe being a little bit, maybe just a little bit towards the people that deserve it, where it's like, yes, we were right. We were right when we said Game Pass isn't sustainable. Throwing Call of Duty in there is a big bet. Sure hope that leads to tens more million subscribers, because if not, you just spent $68 billion to stay in the same spot you're already in. That doesn't make any sense. Microsoft really tried to gaslight PlayStation into thinking no exclusives was the future. I mean, to their credit, Sony was like, I don't know. I don't know, bro. Maybe. And that's where I'm looking at. That's where I was like, okay, well, if Sony's convinced, then fuck it. I guess I'm convinced too. Like, I can't. You know what I mean? When Sony's out here being like, we are putting Helldivers on Xbox, it's like, okay. All right. But again, something changed. Something deep inside of Microsoft changed. And I would like to know what it is. Something inside of Sony changed too. Something all around changed. Oh my God, that's cursed. What is that? Stay hydrated. Yes, true. Thank you, Prince. That's so off-putting. But I want to make it clear, man. Like, Aware Sneakers SO. Turns out Sneakers SO was Phil Spencer. I always knew. Why do you think? He says they're never going back to exclusivity? Because Phil doesn't want to believe it. Phil's like, are you kidding me? Do you know what I've sacrificed? Phil is literally the Willem Dafoe meme from Spider-Man 1. That's who it was. That's who it was, man. I hope, dude, I cannot wait. You don't understand, guys, you don't understand. Like, you don't understand how much I want Xbox to do the thing. Like, people don't understand how much I'm actually rooting for Asha Sharma right now. For so many reasons. Number one, Asha Sharma comes in, says, I'm kicking PlayStation's face in. Xbox is going to be number one. Xbox games are going to be number one. We're going to have exclusives. We are going to be the best place to play. We are for the players. All that's going to do, if it actually works, is make Sony go, okay, well, we have to get back. We have to get back in the fight here. We got to, like, no more slacking off. No more weird experiments. We got to be on the razor's edge now. And that's only good. That's called, you ready for it? Wait for it. Hold on. That's called competition. Yes, that's right. It turns out the entire time, as people were trying to virtue signal, they didn't want to have the conversation about competition. They want to talk about how pro-consumer this is and that is when it benefits specifically them and their platform and where they play. But when it comes to the wider conversation about what about the intense competition that existed for the past 20 years between these two brands, these two companies and their hardware and their studios and their games and their services and their accessories and everything that goes along with it, what about that? They won't talk about that. They'll say that's just a whataboutism. It's not relevant. Meanwhile, it's relevant to the entire conversation, and it's the exact reason. It's the exact reason why now you're starting to see the 180. Some people are doing a 90. I get it. It's going to take some time. Some people are doing the 90. But you're seeing the 180 because, yes, it turns out that when I would say over and over again, I know what you want. I know where you guys were. I know what you guys wanted, and I know what you guys were celebrating. I know. Music Maker Man, I'm going to read your super chat. All right, I'm going to read these super chats in just a second. Hold on. Anyway, I'm not trying to get too worked up here. I'm just saying, man, like if we go back to the point where we started and it all comes full circle, I'm going to be happy with that because I never had a problem with where we started. I thought we were at a good starting point and I thought it was only going to get better from there. And instead, it just made all these weird side paths and all these misdirections. And I'm like, but on Sony and Microsoft's side, and I'm like, can we just get back to you guys wanting to beat the shit out of each other with great single player exclusives to buy your console? Because that would be cool. That was pretty cool, you know? I think secretly a lot of people like that. You know, I think a lot of people like that because it felt exciting. It felt like, dude, they're fighting for us. And that's awesome to see. Music Maker Man, you're saying, after seeing Kojima pictured with Asha Sharma recently, here's a crazy hot take. Physint on Project Helix, timed exclusive, impossible. Oh my God, dude. Microsoft gave Sony an offer they couldn't refuse. That's right. Physint, produced and published by PlayStation Studios, timed Xbox exclusive. You don't want to know how much we paid for this. I'd buy an Xbox. Hey, Microsoft, it would work. I would look at Sony and be like, you disgust me. And then I would go buy Project Helix day one. Who said exclusivity doesn't matter? No, I'm probably going to have to save the Fair Games leak. Or maybe we'll have time for it. We'll see. I got to finish reading this Xbox post. And Armani Coleman, you're saying, I can't wait for Saros. Who's stronger, him or Cliff? I don't know. I mean, Arjun seems pretty strong. Maybe Cliff is stronger, though. I'm not as familiar with Cliff. Wall Roar, by the way, I'm sorry. No, Wall Roar, your direct donations are going through. I apologize. I'm always just a little bit late to them now because I don't get the notification till later. So I appreciate you being. I'm sorry. I'm like an hour late, dude. I'm sorry, bro. I have to figure out how to make that an audible notification sound. You're saying sounds good to me, although I would hate to do exclusivity again. I mean, you're not. Listen, I appreciate people who maintain that energy, who were like, yeah, no, I was serious when I said I didn't like exclusives. I can respect that. I can respect that because it's like, okay, you were serious. Like, what I don't like to see is people denying what they really like and want. You know, I wish if people could just be more honest, it would make for better conversation. So I think that's fine, Walroar, because as far as I could tell, you were always on that side. I know you wish you were me, saying Glenn Israel, 17-year director from Halo. Let's see. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, that's a lot. Yeah. What's going on there? I'll check that out in a second. Armani Coleman, you're saying I still have some hope for Rise of Hydra this summer. Yeah, I mean, dude, if we don't see it this summer, it's in trouble. I'll tell you that. If we don't see it this summer, it's in trouble. We still have time though. Not going to call it yet. And Jimmy Mack, 88, with a $10 super chat saying, outside of Call of Duty due to contractual obligations, Xbox should pull the full boat off PlayStation, Minecraft, Overwatch, Gears, Halo, etc. Let these companies genuinely compete again. We need it as gamers. Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty brutal, but it's like, I will say the only time I think it can become a little bit dangerous, perhaps, is when, like, I don't know that Microsoft should ever take all of Activision Blizzard's games. Like, for example, like Call of Duty and or like Minecraft. I don't know that I agree entirely with that. Mostly everything, but a few things just for the sake of, like, the last thing I would want to see is an arms race, in terms of or an acquisition war, where it's like, if something like that were to happen, where they take everything, Sony would literally have no choice, but now they're going to have to buy something equally as big. And that's where I think things get kind of out of hand. Like, they can get out of hand, where it's like the competition has to be within a certain set of parameters, like unspoken agreements. And I feel like something like Call of Duty and Minecraft would be under that. Just like if Sony did acquire GTA, it's like, yeah, we're not actually gonna not sell GTA on Xbox, like certain stuff like that. I just think, like, we want to see like the raw competition, you know, where we want to see, if not them building their own studios and building them out and building new IP from those new studios, acquiring smaller studios and growing them, We've been seeing this throughout all the decades. And it seemingly came to a head with all these, that massive spurt of consolidation that has seemingly stopped. That's the fear, is like, when you reach the higher level, the end game. I mean, that's where, I'll be honest, man, Microsoft kind of, I know this is going to sound bad because it's like I'm blaming Microsoft. I'm not blaming them for anything. I'm just saying they kind of did something that, of course, they're within their means to do. And I remember all the arguments where it's like, well, if Sony's going to keep paying for these third-party exclusives, well, then we're just. But Microsoft, they did. They raised the stakes, man. They're like, we'll do you one better. They escalated, where it's like, oh, Sony, you want to keep paying for third-party exclusivity and stuff like that? Well, we're going to fucking buy Bethesda and then Activision Blizzard. How about that? How about that? And that's where it's like, there was the whole argument of like, who's worse? And it's just cringe, where it's like, well, Sony, at least Sony didn't buy a publisher, or it's like, well, who cares? Like, Microsoft, they're allowed to do what they want with their money, and Sony was being shady. And we saw like Phil and other people talk about that and, bitch Sony out, where they're like, they're making these shady backdoor deals and shit like that. And it's like, I'm sorry, man, but like, if there's one thing the ABK acquisition proved and the Bethesda acquisition proved, is like, Sony didn't solve all their problems through sheer spending. And Sony, like, regardless of what people want to think, Sony didn't get to the position they're in with PlayStation just by spending the most money. Literally, that's where it's like, you have to look at what started PlayStation, dude. What started PlayStation was them getting fucked over by Nintendo. And literally, the executives at Sony at that point were like, oh, hell no. Revenge. Ultimate. Like, maybe not revenge, but wanting to prove, like, we don't need you, we can do this ourselves. So there was like a real fire. And I think when you listen to what Asha Sharma is saying, where it's like the beginnings of Xbox, there was a real fire there too. Where, Xbox was like, well, we can do that. Who does Sony think they are? Having a monopoly in the living room. We can take them on, and that's cool. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you want to, Microsoft is finding out. Microsoft found out that if you want to beat Sony at this game, then you have to abide by the rules to which this game is played. And if you choose not to, you're going to find that you're in a different space entirely. And that's what Microsoft found out. They didn't want to abide by the rules. They wanted to do things differently. And they thought that that would rattle Sony's cage and uproot the industry. It didn't. It just turned out that, yeah, you were the only one who put everything into your subscription service and it didn't work. You were the only one who decided to buy multiple publishers to put into that subscription service and it didn't work. So, you know, your options now are a little bit more limited. Hold on. There's a Game Pass leak. Game list for Xbox Game Pass starter leaks. Tiers won't have online multiplayer. Streaming games 10 plus hours a month. Advantages in game plus rewards, points, winnings. More than 50 playable games on PC, console, and other media. Available everywhere. PC, console, compatible devices. Okay. I mean, that's cool. I guess they're gonna be really. I guess this is their next move. They realize that Call of Duty isn't gonna bring people to Game Pass, so maybe just having different, like a ton of different tiers could. Ray, you're saying Kojima pick is KP or OD, Xbox controller or backbone. Mm. Xbox controller. Let me. Okay. So yeah, you're asking me to cover what Glenn Israel said about. So this was from 20 days ago. I didn't cover this, but it says here former Halo Studios art director Glenn Israel says he was subjected to blacklisting, fraud, rampant chronism, manifesting as hiring and career growth interface, and multiple harassment campaigns designed to provoke the constructive discharge of unwanted employees otherwise in good standing. Oh boy, how did I miss this one? Bro, what? Did they do this? Basically gaslighting. They're going to gaslight you to termination. Is this what they did to Phil? So it says, under the revised Code of Washington, Title 49, Chapter 44, Section 211, I allege the following. That between January 2024 and June 2025, I witnessed firsthand or is personally subjected to numerous unethical and or unlawful acts committed by senior Halo Studios representatives, including but not limited to blacklisting, fraud, rampant favoritism, and multiple harassment campaigns designed to provoke the constructive discharge of unwanted employees otherwise in good standing. That, after filing several documented complaints with Microsoft's Human Resource Department in June 2025, a senior global employee relations representative threatened retaliation on first contact and promised to quash any further investigation. The senior Halo Studios representatives engaged in a 4-day-long act of harassment intended to manufacture a cause for my termination in July 2025. Oh, hold on. Okay. Hold on, I'm going to fix the camera. Okay, we're good. We're good. I think the mic's still good. Volume's low. Okay, we're good. Sorry. We're good. Says here that complaints escalated to BRI and Microsoft's workplace investigation team were reported closed. August 2025, the catastrophic mismanagement of Halo campaign Evolved created an opportunity for senior Halo Studios representatives to temporarily reassign the art team for my unannounced project and falsely characterize my role as redundant, a painfully retaliatory act. September 2025, the GER director promised to have this retaliation investigated and then disallowed any consideration of the original complaints, subsequent harassment, or actions taken by the GER representatives. Jeez, man. And it just goes on and on. I don't know. This sounds like it's going to be a pretty serious legal thing. I mean, shady shit like this happens all the time at these companies, man. Shady shit like this always happens. And I don't know. I guess we'll find out what the ruling ends up being. Anyway, let me finish reading this. I'm just going to read the last section of this write-up. They say, we are Xbox to achieve our master plan. I love how they say master plan. That's amazing. To achieve our master plan, the way we work must transform. Our best work happens when the full stack moves together. Microsoft Gaming describes our structure, but it does not describe our ambition. So we are going back to where we started and changing our team's name. We are Xbox. This feels so stupid. I'm sorry. Like, I just got to call it like that. This feels so like, what do you mean? What? Guys, after all this time, we're going back. We are Xbox. All right. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be condescending or flippant. It just feels a little bit silly. You know, it feels like the equivalent of Sony being like, I can't wait for Sony to come out and be like, guys, we're just going back to PlayStation Network. We are PlayStation. It is PlayStation Network. You know, it's like, of course it is. Of course it is. Like, what are you, stupid? It just goes, dude, it goes to show how dumb some of the executives are in the room where they're like, what if we just change the name for no reason? For no fucking reason. It's like, sure, man. Yeah, whatever you say, bro. All right. Sorry, boss. Not right now, buddy. So they say, we are high agency culture where wild and wonderful ideas thrive. Our job is not to smooth over our differences, but to connect everyone into something greater than any one studio or product. We have to be honest about where we are. We're a challenger, and meeting this moment will require pace, energy, and a level of self-critique that should feel uncomfortable. And they lay out 10 points. Asha Sharma has 10 points. You ready? I'm going to just read them off. Earn every player. Protect our art. Stay rebellious. Progress over perfection. Signal over ceremony. Core before more. You hear that, Sony? Core before more. Outwork the problem. Speed is learning. Makers over managers. Clarity is kindness. Over the last 5 years, Xbox and the industry have been through an unimaginable amount of change, and this team has continued to deliver through it for our community. Thank you for staying focused on what matters. 62 days in, we're proud of how we've honored our commitment of great games, return to Xbox, and future play. We're here to do the most creative and courageous work of our lives, and that's what we'll all do together. With gratitude, Matt and Asha. So, all right. It sounds good. I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see how they plan to do this. MBG Jez Corden just posted that Phil was used to testing how high Xbox could push margins, forcing him to fall if the plan failed. This implies Asha isn't expected to do the same, at least not now. And again, like, to me, I have to ask the question, what changed? Like, the question is simply this, Sparky Nuts. This is a question for Asha Sharma. This is a question for Satya Nadella. They won't answer it. Maybe they will. I don't know. I don't think they will. Why do you no longer care about pushing the higher profit margins? I love it. I love it. But I want to know, like, what changed? Why? I find the timing conspicuous. Conspicuous? Suspicious. Sorry, not conspicuous. Suspicious. As soon as Phil's gone, we'll take it easy now. I mean, what? Okay, I guess. Why? What changed? Like, dude, I'm like waiting. It's like, we didn't like Phil. We needed him gone, dude. I I don't know. But something definitely changed. Do you think Phil set do you think Phil set himself up to fail? He promised higher margins, couldn't get it. He put the pressure on himself. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. Like maybe Phil said, give me the money to get Bethesda and Activision, and I'll give you your higher profit margins. That would be fair. That would actually make the most sense. That to me, that's Occam's razor right there. This is how Phil convinced Microsoft to make the $80 billion investment. But I guess it does make sense. I mean, yeah, the more I think about it, maybe what changed, it could be this simple. What changed is they just accepted that Phil's not going to be able to do it. He bit off more than he could chew. Now they're just going to have to deal with it, and they just need somebody to clean this shit up and try to get it somewhere to an acceptable spot. It could just be that. And that makes sense. And so, where exclusivity falls in that, I mean, I don't know, man. They could do it. They could do it. I mean, it's PR. Just because they aren't saying it doesn't mean it still doesn't matter. Well, yeah. I mean, look, dude, I think it might just be best to just let things play out, I mean, I'll still discuss it. I'll still go over it, but my takeaway from this ultimately, I think it's important to cover just so people are aware. Like, there might be some very big changes happening at Xbox, and many PlayStation players are playing Xbox games right now on their PlayStations. Halo's coming up. They're going to be tuning into the Xbox showcase, assuming that this is just how it's going to be going forward. There might be some big changes. My overall takeaway from this, though, outside of just informing people and talking about, hey, they're confirming they're reevaluating exclusivity, is good luck. Good luck. If there's one thing that I am, and I know that this will sound a little fanboyish, and that's fine, but humor me for just a moment. If there's one thing I am tired of, is people who are engaging in these conversations. You know what types of people I'm talking about. Just pretending that Sony hasn't done good things, or not, maybe good things isn't the right word, that they haven't done things right to an extent. That, like, they make it seem like PlayStation failed upwards. And it's like, I assure you, it is the opposite. I can absolutely assure you that. This is why when Microsoft did everything they did for the last 10 years, they didn't do shit to Sony. Like, they couldn't shake Sony down, dude. No amount of money they threw at the problem, no amount of aggression they showed, they couldn't shake Sony. And why do you think that is? This is where I try to remind people, like, hopefully Asha Sharma, which I don't think she will. She could. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think she will. Hopefully she doesn't. Assuming she wants to compete with PlayStation, she might not. This might be a non-conversation, because it's like Asha Sharma's like, oh no, PlayStation's our ally. Yeah, no, we're not really going back to exclusivity. They're going to help us make the money we need to make. It could just be that. And if it's that, then it negates this entire thing. But if it's not that, if I am to believe what many people are propagating right now, if I'm to entertain what is being propagated, then I look at this and I'm like, good luck. Because there is a reason why Sony is where they are. And I'm not saying that arrogantly. I'm not. Sony has proven they're not perfect. Sony has proven that they're susceptible to mistakes. They're susceptible to stumbles and fuck ups, just like anybody else. And Luxspace comes in and drops 5 more member gifts for you guys. Yeah, guys, so we're going to be wrapping this up here in about 20 minutes or so. So if you want to drop any more support between now and that time, feel free to do so. Luxspace wants to contribute to the goal here. He brings us up to 32 members on the day. Luxspace, very much appreciate that, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the support. Yeah, and I'm not trying to dump on Xbox, or I'm not trying to make it seem like there's something wrong with the fans being excited. I'm just saying it's weird seeing some people are acting like they already won. And it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why the hell you're like seemingly taking a victory lap. It's like nothing has happened. One thing has happened with Game Pass. That's it. And even then, like, for some people, it's a little bit questionable. It seems to fall in favor with the majority, which is good. But it's like, dude, I just want to remind people, like, Sony didn't get lucky. That's all I'm trying to say is Sony needs a real competitor, man. And Microsoft has not been that for like 2 decades. Not 2 decades, but for like a decade and a half, seemingly. Like 12 to 13 years. It's like, I hope this is the time. I hope this is finally going in that direction. But, I guess if we look at this from a more, like a higher level, I'll ask this question. Sony seeing this, PlayStation seeing this and hearing this, do we think they're worried? Do we think they're like, oh shit? Probably not. But they're not stupid. They're not sitting there being like, clowns. Well, maybe they are under their breath. But I'm saying, like, they're not taking it seriously. That's what I'm trying to say. Sony is taking this seriously, but they are not going to do jack shit. Because they're going to say, okay, your move. Ball's in your court. And that's absolutely true. The ball is in Microsoft's court. Asha Sharma's got her hands on the ball right now. She's going to be, she's dribbling it all around. It's all right. She got some moves. But how's it going to translate? How's it going to translate? How is she going to contribute to the game overall and help the team win? That's what I'm most curious about. PlayStation is not slowing down anytime soon. Obviously, they're in a position they're in a power position to an extent. They're not, again. This is why, like, people will get mad at me and they will dislike me, but I will sit here and look you dead in the face and say PlayStation is far from perfect. PlayStation has some serious issues. We have another fucking Fair Games report to go over later, probably in the next stream, for God's sake. So believe me when I tell you, Sony has some work of their own to do. But when it comes to the level of difficulty that anybody who chooses to try to compete with PlayStation at a high level is going to face, yeah, it's something that should be respected to a certain extent, because, again, it's not like Sony just stumbled into it. Have they had some lucky breaks? Yeah, any company that finds success has a couple of lucky breaks. But I just, look at what we talked about today, guys. Saros. I'm not sitting here telling you Saros is going to be the biggest PlayStation system seller. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Saros is going to sell 15 million copies and sell 8 million PlayStation 5 units. No, what I'm here to tell you is that Saros is another game from PlayStation first-party studios that's seemingly going to get nominated many times over, or at least numerous times. and possibly be a Game of the Year contender. That's what I'm here to say, and it's a seemingly a fantastic game. That's what Sony's putting out. That's what a Sony first-party studio is putting out on top of getting every third-party game, on top of getting Xbox games, still on top of getting GTA 6, on top of, everything else they're doing, man. And if the only thing somebody could say, yeah, well, they're selling the PS5 Pro for $900, it's like, okay, yeah, that sucks. Anyway, like, it's not like they sold the PS5 Pro day one at $900. It's not like they got to 95 million PS5 sold by starting out with the PS5 event. PS5 is going to be $700, guys, $650. Things would have played out very differently. This is why we have extensive conversation about what could Sony do wrong? Where could they fuck up going into next gen? We have this conversation over and over again, because if there's one thing I will say is the greatest danger to Sony is not Microsoft. It's not Microsoft going back to exclusivity. It's not Nintendo. It's not Valve. The greatest danger to PlayStation going into next gen is themselves. Where it's like, you just make a few wrong moves in a certain order and you're cooked. And I know what that seems like. Well, not cooked, but like, you're going to have a real hard time. Like, suddenly you're not at the top anymore. You're knocked down a rung or two. That's happened time and time again. Happened to Nintendo, happened to Sony, happened to Microsoft. It's never not happened. The difference is Sony already had that happen back in the PS3 era. Hopefully they're smart enough to know what not to do now, so they can avoid that. So why do you think Sony's worried about Microsoft but not Nintendo? I do think Sony's worried about Nintendo. I have to learn more about what Sony's approach is with the PlayStation handheld. Until I find more out about that and I really see what their plan is there, it's going to be hard for me, because the handheld will tell us how worried or not worried Sony is about Nintendo. I get the feeling that they're worried about losing Japan completely, and maybe they already have to an extent, but they made that Japan-only PlayStation 5 that's still selling decently well because that didn't get a price increase as far as I'm aware. They have the handheld coming. So I do think that Sony is trying to take Nintendo on. How aggressively, though, I'm not sure about that. But maybe in like the periphery, just a little bit more than we were before. Same thing with Valve. I think Sony's paying attention to Valve. I think they have to. All right. Microsoft needs to take the long plan again, not the short gains. Put money on your studios and make better games. Well, we're going to find out, man. Oh, you're saying that you're trying to show me that Sony does view Nintendo as competition? I mean, I'm certain they do. Yeah. I don't think Sony looks at anybody here, even Microsoft. I don't think they're looking at anybody and being like, you mean nothing. I mean, you hear fanboys talk like that, but fanboys who talk like that, if they're being serious about it, it's like, I don't know that you should be partaking in this conversation because you don't know how these things work. Thank you for that, MVP Moss. Yeah, I hope so too. Definitely worried. Xbox fans are saying Saros is PlayStation Starfield, and I don't get it. Okay. Who's saying that? Like, you're saying Xbox fans, I'm gonna hedge a bet when you say that. What you're really talking about are the Xbox radical clowns that constantly look stupid. I'm assuming that's who you're talking about. Yes. They would say something like that. So are they admitting Starfield is They're doing one of two things. They're either doubling down and saying Starfield's actually that amazing, or they're actually saying Starfield is that bad. Where it's like, so if you want if Saros, if there are people saying Saros is PlayStation Starfield, it's like, yeah, are you insulting the game saying Saros isn't good and that it's a flop? Because that's definitely not what you were saying about Starfield. So I guess in a sense, they're complimenting the game. If it's Xbox fanboys saying that, Xbox fanboys were all over Starfield thinking it was going to be a game of the generation. So that's some pretty high praise for Saros, I'd say. Not bad. Not bad. All right. It's a massive compliment, bro. All right, let me close some of this out. Sorry, I'm you know, I'll say this too. If there are people who, even if Microsoft goes back to exclusivity and they still see it as bad and they like keep that same energy as it were, like I said, I did mention this earlier, but I just want to reiterate, I can respect that. But it's interesting that it's interesting when you take a look around at not one individual here or one individual there, but when you take a look around and you realize that there's just some things that can't be hidden in this space. There's just things that cannot be hidden, no matter how much people want to try to hide it, no matter how much people want to try to deny it, and no matter how much they want to try to believe and delude themselves to think they're above something, when in reality, it's like, if you're this deeply involved in the conversation, I'm gonna be honest with you, and this is just it's a stark reality. If you're this deeply involved in the conversation, you have a bias that's very strong. Whether that's towards PC, whether that's towards Nintendo, whether that's towards Microsoft, whether that's towards Sony. And I just think that people really need to do a better job of just being honest with themselves and in the conversations in that instance where it's like, it's okay. It's okay. You're allowed to have a bias and you're allowed to have a massive preference and you're allowed to like something a lot more than something else. But the thing is, where the problem always arises is not when people disclose that, not when people admit that, but when they talk about that and then they talk down something else. That's where it is necessary to be factual. It is necessary to not bullshit, and this is why, man. This is why this whole conversation, I won't lie to you. I can't lie to you. It just comes through all the time, no matter what. It's why the whole conversation around exclusivity, it really has exposed some people to a degree where it's like, yep, yep. Turns out you really love exclusivity. Or if you don't love exclusivity, you're surrounded by people who do. And that's why I'm like, Asha, please do it. Please. Come on. Come on. It's hard for me not to pay attention to it because I want them to do it. Do it. Do it. I make it sound bad. I'm making it sound evil. It's not evil. It's just I'm cool with. Let's get back. Let's get back to the late 90s, the early 2000s, the mid aughts. Let's do it. What was so bad about it? I mean, it had its problems, but come on. Could it really be that bad now? If anything, we're nostalgic for it. Right? Had any problems with that Xbox YouTuber recently? No, I haven't been beefing with any YouTubers or any particular Xbox content creators. I know like everybody has their own lane and everybody has their opinions. I'm not beefing with anybody in particular. I'll be honest, man. I haven't been really that tuned in to what other content creators are saying or doing. I mean, I see like some tweets here and there. Honestly, I get it a lot from. There's like a group of Xbox players, like hardcore Xbox fanboys, that they can't stand me, dude. They fucking hate me, and they're ready to just pounce at a moment's notice. And you know, it's annoying dealing with that to an extent, where it's like, you know, they're the ones that I know. Like, here's the best thing, dude. If Microsoft announces they're taking their games off of PlayStation and they're going back to it, it's like, dude, I assure you, the vast majority of PlayStation players will not care. Like, let me elaborate. They will care enough to be like, what gives? Whoa. Like, why do you I don't get it. You told me you wanted to bring these games over and I'm paying attention now. Now you're taking them away? They'll care enough to say that, but they'll move on pretty quickly. You know? And that's the truth, man. And that's why. That's another reason why I'm like, Asha, you should do it. Because I mean, some of these games, again, like Forza sold really well, but I don't know, dude. You don't believe that? I mean, I just feel like the numbers kind of speak for themselves, dude. You know, like it would be different. Like I could see if PlayStation fans, you saw a big outcry for Forza, I would understand that. Maybe Halo I don't know how Halo's going to do, but it's just like everything else it's there are people engaged with it and those people will probably speak up, but in the bigger picture, man, it's like outside of Call of Duty and Forza, I don't know. I don't know that it would matter that much. That's why I'm like, you want to make Gears of War E-Day exclusive? Go for it. I mean that's Gears E-Day is a bit of a, you know, that's a coin flip. That could do well on PlayStation, that could flop. But if the Gears of War Reloaded or whatever the hell it was called, the remaster, if that's anything to go by, oh boy. I don't blame them for making it exclusive. But that's a remaster. This is a new game. It's hard to determine. Well, no, I know that. I'm referencing those two games because those are the two games that, and Minecraft. Minecraft's fair too. These are the games that matter. They hate me more because I was a 360 fan. I was even on the Xbox One for a while, dude. Wait until these Xbox guys find out that, you know, PlayStation content creators are getting invited to Xbox Fan Fest. This is what I mean about these guys. Like, they don't get it. I struggle to even read what they say, and I see that they like upvote one another, and it's like, you guys don't fucking get it. I wish you would. I wish they would. They don't get it. But, like, dude, it's fine. I'm rooting for exclusivity. I'm rooting for them to go back to it. I'm not fully convinced they will, but if they do, I'm cheering them on. And I'll lay it out this simply. Asha Sharma, if you're listening, you tell me State of Decay 3, well, You already announced Forza Horizon 6 for PS5, but State of Decay 3 and future games in that series, and right, Gears of War, maybe Gears of War Day, but whatever other surprises you have up your sleeve, you tell me they're going to be exclusive to Helix. They're never coming to PlayStation. They're just not coming to PlayStation 5. No timed, nothing. I'll buy a Helix. I'll do it. But if not, I'm just going to go based off of what I've been told for the last 2 years, which is, yeah, they're coming to PlayStation. So anyway, guys, I am going to have to wrap it up here. I have to close it at 3:00. I would talk longer, but I have no choice here. So, thank you all so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate the support. To everybody who dropped any member gifts or became a channel member, thank you so much for that. If you dropped any super chats over the course of today, any direct donations, which I'm just going to double check that I didn't miss any. Okay. Thank you so much for that. I'm only able to do what I do here because you guys make it possible. Now, listen, I do need to leave you with this. I'm, for now, going to assume I'll be back here on Sunday. And Kaz Jam, thank you so much for that, buddy. Kaz Jam gets another member gift in here before we wrap up. He wants a little single train before we head out here. As I do my outro, feel free to drop any more support if you want, because my plan is to be back here Sunday. My plan is to go into the upcoming week normally. There's a medical situation happening in the family right now. Don't know what's going to happen. So, it's very nerve-wracking. And, I don't know what's going to happen. It's just that simple. So I guess I could try to keep you guys updated in the Discord. I know, Ray, you dropped the link to the Discord a little while ago. So if you don't see me active on the channel, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm assuming everything is going to be fine. All right. But if you don't see me on the channel for some time or something, just know that's why. There's something going on, something serious. All right. But again, hopefully, I'm going to be praying that's not the case. I'm going to be praying everything's going to be just fine, and I'll be back here Sunday. And one can only hope. All right. With that being said, want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. Devil Shooter does the timestamps for the streams. If you guys see Devil Shooter in those comments with the timestamps, give him some thanks. Show him some love. I know he appreciates it. Devil Shooter, thank you so much for what you do. And thank all of you guys again for tuning in. And that's it. All right. I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, take care, everyone.